Welcome to The Whole Story. I'm Anderson Cooper. Since his defeat in 2020, former President Donald Trump has repeatedly and falsely claimed the election was stolen, the results somehow rigged by Democrats. There's no evidence of widespread voter fraud, but that hasn't stopped Mr. Trump and his allies from relentlessly pushing these lies. Now, many of those same allies are gathering again, ready to claim fraud if the former president is once again defeated in November. CNN's Donie O'Sullivan spent the past few months with some of Trump's biggest promoters who continue to spread doubts about the security of the election and are doing whatever they can to ensure Trump win. He begins with the most famous pillow salesman in America.
How are you? My name is Donie O'Sullivan.
Okay, Tony.
Donie.
Joni O'Sullivan?
No, not Joni like Joni Mitchell. Tony? Donie.
Donie?
Are you an Irish boy?
Yes.
God bless you. So am I.
As a journalist, I spend most of my time traveling across the country, talking to people
My name is Go F Yourself.
And are you from Ohio?
about who they are
I committed to dressing like a crusader maybe 5-6 years ago.
and how they see the world.
If you tell me you're going to release the Kraken, show me the freaking Kraken, for crying out loud.
JFK
Senior.
is Jesus reincarnated.
All while trying to keep an open mind.
Biden has never been inside the White House. They are at Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta.
As conspiracy theories hurt regular people
We will get through this.
It's caused me to lose my son.
and lies lead to violence.
Bringing live rounds right now and shooting people.
I think we better move beyond this police line.
In this land of misinformation.
Get that out of my face.
I'm waiting for the My Pillow guy.
It's happening now. Other things happening now. The Great Replacement Theory. You all know that name, right? They want to replace American citizens who love the country with people who have no love for the country.
$5. My Pillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever...
Last time I saw Mike in person was about 3 years ago at his cyber symposium in South Dakota, where he said he was going to prove the 2020 election was stolen.
There's hacks and cyber attacks every day.
He didn't.
So I don't need your people to go out and doctor the evidence and put out a Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Somehow 3 years later, he's still doing what he's doing. I'm still doing what I'm doing. Neither of us are the better for it. I bet you this is him. This seems like Mike's convoy. See?
Mike! How are you doing? It's been a long time.
What's going on? How you been?
Welcome to Las Vegas.
See ya.
Did you just
A lot
land
of
in?
history here. Did you ever read my book? You know, I lived here for a while. A lot of bad things.
We'd come to Las Vegas to meet the country's most famous pillow salesman.
Look,
Are you going to pay attention this time?
I'll try. I'll try.
And one of the country's biggest election deniers. Mike was in town for a couple of MAGA events. The election was still 7 months away, but here it was all about getting Trump back into the White House.
Yeah, my husband has this one.
It felt like half-tent revival,
Because we're just talking to God right now, right?
sure,
So Father God, I just thank you for Donnie, Lord.
half-Trump rally,
Where's all the media that's snaking around here? You can come right up here.
where it seemed like everyone was selling something. Movies,
I'm going to shamelessly plug my movie. #1 on Amazon of all DVDs that's sold on Amazon.
and miracles.
Balances the brain hemispheres.
Okay.
Yeah.
You allow the cells to detox and come back into harmony with the body.
I feel like I'm being abducted by aliens or something.
But Mike was here to sell more than pillows. He was on a crusade to save American democracy.
It's Thursday, 18 April, the year of our Lord 2024.
We've got the great Mike Lindell up here. And no, we're not going to start with an infomercial on lumpy pillows or free shipping.
From a Cold War room.
Will you go here?
I think last time you interviewed me, I lost my voice. Remember that?
Did you back in 2021?
Yeah.
Mike, it's 3 years on.
Right.
You're still doing this.
Yeah. Gotta save our country, huh?
There's a lot of people in this for cynical reasons, right? To make money, to get famous. You strike me as somebody who truly believes the 2020 election was...
You can't say I'm a grifter when I'm $40 million in and I keep attacking my company and I'm decimated.
My battle is to get rid of the machines and get to paper ballots hand counted. It's not about a conspiracy of overturning the 2020 election.
But Mike did try to overturn the 2020 election, something he doesn't like pointed out.
You would want it to be the best in the world, but this isn't about the 2020 election. What they're going to show...
What am I going to learn here
You're going to learn that the computers that are used in our election have God keys, description keys in there. They have the passcodes inside them, and they're all on the internet, and they're using software that was illegal, and that's what the Supreme Court will see themselves. Now, don't you think the judge should at least open up and say, hey, you guys, we got a big problem here. And it's connected to where? China.
It's hard to follow what Mike actually believes, but ultimately he's convinced, wrongly, that the 2020 election was stolen through hacked voting machines. And now he wants to get rid of them.
Tomorrow's the big day. If they pull that in, it'll be 9-0, they will vote.
We'd met Mike a day before the Supreme Court was due to consider a case he had funded against election officials in Arizona in an effort to get rid of voting machines there.
Are we going live on Frank Speech? Yeah. Yeah. We're going to let you guys film us being live on Frank Speech.
After Mike and other Trump supporters were kicked off social media platforms following January 6th for spreading election conspiracy theories,
I'm having a social media platform. It's like a YouTube, Twitter combination.
Mike set up his own social media and video streaming platform, Frank Speech.
This thing over here at Frank Speech is in Lindell TV has done two things. One, it's gave us a platform to reach out to all of you with MyPillow products, and then also to keep our voice going.
It's got its own slate of TV shows.
Our guest is Ben Berkwin, who's been on here many times. We love Ben.
Hey, Wayne, it's great to be back with you.
Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani with The Rudy Giuliani Show.
I want to tell you when we all started winning, and that was on January 7th and January 8th of 2021. Our real president lost his Twitter, remember that? And so everybody that had even spoke out about the election or questioned it, they were deplatformed. But since that day, our voice kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I set up the Cause of America, my own network, Frank Speech. I said, I got to reach the public. God wins in the end. Thank you. God bless you.
But Mike wasn't the only one here with an election conspiracy theory.
The election was stolen in 6 battleground states. Those 6 states were decided by the votes of illegal aliens who came in through our open border.
These false beliefs about the last election are being used as a pretext to cause chaos and confusion about the next election. And they've spread far beyond this room in Vegas.
This is not a fight between Democrats versus Republicans.
Come on. Come on.
This is a fight against good and evil.
Do you think it'll be a fair election?
I think they're going to try and cheat.
Our voting system was always a facade.
Are you concerned if Trump loses?
Yeah.
That there'll be another January 6th?
No, I think there will be a civil war.
COPD hasn't been pretty. It's tough to breathe and tough to keep wondering if this is as good as it gets. But Trelegy has shown me that there's still beauty and breath to be had. Because with 3 medicines in 1 inhaler, Trelegy keeps my airways open and prevents future flare-ups. And with 1 dose a day, Trelegy improves lung function, so I can breathe more freely all day and night.
Trelegy won't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Do not take Trelegy more than prescribed. Trelegy may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Ask your doctor about Watts Daily Trelegy for COPD, because breathing should be beautiful.
When I was diagnosed with HIV, I didn't know who I would be.
But here I am, being me.
Keep being you and ask your healthcare provider about the #1 prescribed HIV treatment, Biktarvy.
Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in many people, whether you're 18 or 80. With one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to undetectable and stay there, whether you're just starting or replacing your current treatment. Research shows that taking HIV treatment as prescribed and getting to and staying undetectable prevents transmitting HIV through sex. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Do not take Biktarvy if you take dofetilide or rifampin. Tell your healthcare provider about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your healthcare provider. Common side effects are diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
No matter where life takes you, Biktarvy can go with you. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
We'd come to the southern border in California to meet a religious group called Take Our Border Back.
Come on, come on. So all you live streamers, this is it. This is what it's going to take action. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. We've got to take action. Close the border.
One of its leaders is Kim Yater.
We're at war, and it is a spiritual war against principalities of darkness. Come on, we're appealing to heaven. Mexico, that's right.
We're rolling down to the border to get the message through.
Freedom! Amen, amen, amen.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Father God, we come before you, God, in the name of Jesus. Father, we come before you. We love you. We praise you. We speak out to Mexico right now. We speak out to the ends of the earth right now. We pray for victory over Satan, victory over the enemy. Let's break bread in Jesus' name. Come on. So good.
How are you doing? I'm
Good.
Tony.
Tony, great
Tony,
to
yeah.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Kim is a life coach.
Joni, are you a human doing or a human being?
And now, an online influencer.
Do you see my bling? So, Mike, I've been censored and canceled at Salem.
Well, I'm going to go like this. No way.
You really got politically involved in 2020?
That's a great question, Joni. So I got to tell you, I am not into politics at all, nor do I have an interest in politics. I'm into truth. So I can't say I got politically involved. I got truth involved.
This is the Take Our Border Back North America Alliance.
The group's name may be Take Our Border Back.
Border, border, border. We're here because of the border.
But the topics here...
What we're dealing with today is an evil oligarchy.
It's we the people versus the deep state.
Range from fighting communism...
He told my mom, honey, they're coming for me. My mom said, what? Who? The communists. Communism is here. They're not practicing it. They're enforcing it here.
To fifth-generation warfare.
Fifth-generation warfare is basically anything that's non-kinetic. V2K, voice-to-skull technology.
And of course, elections.
Does the ballot box matter? Does your voice being heard matter?
We all know what happened. Joe Biden didn't win.
Many of the people at this event believe American elections are in some way corrupt, like Noel.
Regardless of the problems of the election, the process, the machines, our government, keeping us in our boxes and not being able to congregate together.
What would you describe yourself as? Are you activist, influencer? Are you an influencer?
They say influencer. I don't know how true that rings.
Online, she's known as Patriot Mom 007.
There are some things in place for the illegals voting and being able to register in really sneaky ways.
this idea that undocumented immigrants who are coming into the country today will vote in November's election?
Probably. No
Do you-
doubt.
When it comes in the presidential federal election, do you think that's actually going to happen?
I mean, I think the probability is better than not. I mean, if we're being realistic and
But
honest
in a
about it,
meaningful way?
do you not think it's possible that that's going to happen?
But
just knowing what you do
They
and
would
all
need
the
they would need citizenship,
research you've
though,
done?
right? To vote.
Well, ideally, ideally, yes. I mean, if you're following the laws,
Yeah.
but if you're already a group of people who don't follow the laws,
That's not even a question anymore. There's election fraud. Period. Period. There's so much evidence.
You see, in 2020, my vote was stolen.
So that was the kind of great awakening for me to realize that my vote had been taken.
Kim says her interest in elections began when she claimed she went to vote in 2020 and was told someone already had voted using her identity.
We didn't vote.
We hadn't voted at all. We hadn't mailed anything and nothing. And so that was the beginning of something's not right. How are they thinking that I voted? Who voted for me?
We started taking our elections back.
But Kim was given a provisional ballot and was able to cast a vote.
You having the issue you had to vote in 2020, you don't necessarily know that that has anything to do with undocumented immigrants, right?
So I personally do not know that. Now, if we're going to talk about the illegal immigrants coming in and having the ability to vote, that's a question that we all need to ask.
Undocumented immigrants are not allowed to vote in federal elections in the United States, and multiple studies have shown it is extremely rare.
I'm concerned about the number of illegals that are in our country that are able to vote.
But it's a lie that's being pushed over and over and over again by MAGA influencers.
I can't imagine how many illegals are registered to vote in a state like California.
The U.S. Code, as of right now, would allow illegal aliens to vote in the upcoming presidential election.
We don't have to worry about the reliable voting box. We'll just bring in 20 more million people and we'll give them Social Security cards.
Some in the MAGA world, like Steve Bannon, have huge followings.
War on the border.
Others, like Kim and Noel, have a much smaller audience, but together they form part of a huge and sustained chorus of election denialism.
Middle of nowhere, hot as hell.
Vivek, how are you, my friend?
Many of them have been shut down on major social media platforms for sharing conspiracy theories.
95% of it is just the Rockefeller Foundation.
Even if he's in jail, he'll get elected president.
They're part of a new world of social media sites that promote themselves as free speech platforms.
Nick DiPaolo, Brian Callen, the Hodge Twins, Mr. Guns and Gear, and of course, Alex Jones.
Sleep like a baby.
Be sure to go to mypill.com.
And a lot of them
MyPillow is the only pillow you can buy that fights tyranny and communism.
sell pillows.
Go to mypillow.com and use promo code TRUMP.
Thank God for MyPillow.com. Promo code Frontline.
Tap into the MyPillow complete mattress sleep system. I absolutely love mine.
You have a MyPillow promo code. It's Kim, right?
It is Kim. MyPillow.com/Kim.
But what might have started with a problem at a polling location
The agenda is to depopulate.
seems to have dragged Kim down a rabbit hole.
Anything with the Rothschilds is absolutely sinister, period.
Now, we know that Soros is just another puppet, isn't he?
This was set up and this was deliberate.
We somehow are losing our sovereignty and our voice is being stolen. What's really happening is there's a global agenda. So there's a global agenda being pushed. We've got to follow
Who's
the
pushing
money.
the global agenda?
You know, if I drop names right now, the first and easiest thing for people to say is, oh, conspiracy. She mentioned George Soros. Oh, conspiracy.
Anti-Semitic.
So anti-Semitic, yeah, ridiculous. I love Jews, by the way. Did I tell you that? I love Middle Eastern people. I love Portuguese people. I love people of every nationality, every color, every race. I just love people because we're all God's children, period.
our God is an awesome God.
Through my reporting, I've met a lot of people like Kim. It's always tough to know just how much of what they are saying they really believe.
I know a lot of people on the left cynically will look at you and say, she has seen a niche here to become successful in this new information ecosystem because it could potentially be lucrative.
Can I tell you a secret? This has not been lucrative in any way. This has cost me my time. It's cost me time with family. It's cost me time even in working my own business. This has been lucrative in no way.
But one thing was clear.
For all of you out there that buy my products,
Mike Lindell and his pillows,
the MyPillow HQ,
were helping keep this world of election denialism alive.
now don't trust me on a golf cart. I once drove one right into a pond once.
What can I get started for you?
Could I get a small ice Americano?
All right, go ahead and go forward. I'll have a total for you at the window.
Thank you. We're going to see the MyPillow guy.
My pillow guy?
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I know. Does he come by for coffee?
Probably all the time.
We'll just head on in. Hello, how are you? We're here to see Mike. Oh, wow. Don't know what Mike is thinking about how bad this interview could go, but just spotted a gun on his desk, so. Uh-oh. How are you?
Good. How you doing, guys?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Just admiring you.
I don't usually work on that desk. I usually work right here and everybody comes in.
No problem.
That's fine. Got a couple things I got to do and then we'll be heading down there, but...
When we visited Mike, the first item on his agenda was a call with a company that would help him navigate big tech's rules against misinformation, allowing him to promote his platform, Frank Speech.
The number one thing is Frank Speech platform, because it all centers around that. If I have a voice, I can pretty much guide anything, anywhere. But if I don't have my voice, which is why I made Frank Speech in the first place.
Our goal is to get you on these platforms, getting views without getting taken down. And it's a constant battle.
And you're making awareness for the platform Frank Speech, correct?
That's correct.
That's it. You're hired, okay?
Mike Lindell is an American success story.
Fitting you with a MyPillow is very important so that you get the right amount of fill for you as an individual.
He went from crack addict.
Now that hologram, that picture there is where the drug dealers did an intervention on me in 2008.
Your drug dealers
did an intervention.
To CEO.
Hello. So when they stack these up, and she's looking for any flaws, this is the first part of customer. I'm making sure everything's perfect. There's Dick, he's in the bar.
Right.
Dick, CNN's here, they want to interview you.
He's given jobs to people who've suffered from addiction like he did.
Yeah, he was my kind of hope man. She had been clean and sober for 3 years when he came to me the month before I quit everything. Now here's my original invention. You see this thing with the round holes?
Yeah.
I had to change that out 3 times to get the different sizes I needed when I invented MyPillow. These were how I did my shows back in the day. So I would sit there. If you came to me...
But I sleep like this normally.
Right. So
and this hand gets sore.
Right, your arm gets sore.
Yeah.
You don't need that with a MyPillow because what's happening is your pillow's going flat and your body wants to keep your neck straight.
It's good to see you here.
It's hard to imagine now.
Well, it seems like a lifetime ago that we met in August of 2016. Right.
But until a few years ago, Mike had no interest in politics.
He invited me to Trump Tower, and I walked out of his office about 40 minutes later. I said, I don't know what a president. I had never voted before in my life.
Really?
I didn't know. I was a crack addict. I didn't know a Republican from a Democrat. I didn't know what a filibuster from a millibuster.
You never voted before 2016?
No. My whole life, I didn't think politics affected me at all. And one of the things that you've shown us all is that it affects almost everything in our lives that politics do. Normally, if you've seen this...
But his belief in election conspiracy theories and his insistence on pursuing them has almost cost him his business.
And the box stores and stuff kicked you out after January 2021.
January 9th, when I got all the evidence.
But do you realize what you're doing when it comes to elections? It risks all of this.
Huh?
Right? Like the world.
It has risked all that, but I can't risk our country. I won't back down.
There's no moment where you say, you know what, I should just go back. Focus on
never. I will never look back. I can't unsee what I've seen, and I can't unknow what I know. If you guys knew what I know, you'd be saying, you go, wow, now I get it.
I want to try find out. I want to try understand.
So this machine, I took it only one thing. Everything we send out has a Bible verse in it.
Wait, so this is custom made to put a Bible.
To put a Bible verse in every single package that goes out of here.
What? Those who become Christians become new persons. That's
Second Corinthians.
That's as Trump would say, 2 Corinthians.
Yeah, whatever. So what you see that Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory back there?
Yeah.
I'd stepped into Mike Lindell's factory, into his world.
Robots?
Yeah, these are little robots. What they do.
They're robots.
But the more I spoke to him,
But do you have evidence it was stolen?
In 2020?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The evidence we have is the cast vote records.
the more it was clear when it came to elections that his was a world of pure imagination.
Look at that guy.
I think it's two different things, right? You can say there's issues with voting machines, etc., but you don't have to go as far as saying that the 2020 election was stolen.
I've never, for me, I haven't said that. You guys have been the ones saying that. I've said that in the beginning. Yes, it was stolen. I know it was stolen. I have evidence it was stolen. We got to secure our election platform and learn from that. I don't care if it was completely turned over or not. We got a big problem here where computers are in our elections.
Did you have a good night?
When we last saw Mike in Vegas,
that's what you're going to learn. That's what the Supreme Court will see themselves.
He was confident that a case he had helped bring to the Supreme Court challenging the use of election machines in Arizona would be accepted by all 9 Supreme Court justices.
And I'm telling you, it's going to be a 9-0 vote going, wow.
In the end, the court refused to even hear the case. But Mike wasn't fazed, or at least he didn't act like he was.
Our victories, everybody, these are our little victories, which are big victories. People see, oh, Mike, your Supreme Court case got turned down. How do you feel? I feel great.
All right, so what do you do now? You're going on with Bannon?
Yeah. Hey, Denver.
Hi, sir. How are you today?
Not too bad. Not too bad. We'll do this, the giveaway, the flag and the MyPillow 2.0.
You're doing a promo on Bannon too.
This one, yeah. You know, we buy advertising all over. You know, podcasts everywhere.
How many shows like Bannon's are you on?
Like podcasts, when
yeah,
you know,
between
most all of them. There's I don't know, that's 100 to 200. But we had this long before this election stuff.
Any kind of pro-Trump MAGA media I see, I always see a MyPillow ad on there.
This country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Catherine O'Neill, formerly a Trump administration one. You're selling the best beef in the world. Where do people go?
So if you go to Meriwether,
she's doing beef right now.
Mike Lindell. People's heads have been blown up about this deal. Talk to me. Give me a deal before I go to the 6 o'clock hour.
All right. And Steve, we had a great day with CNN. Remember, they toured the factory, everybody. And so we did. You guys get the free Go Anywhere MyPillow. They'll go and the MyPillow 2.0. Free with any purchase. As we know, we all need the best sleep of our lives during these attacks. Steve, it's been quite a day with these CNN guys. I got 20 cameras on me right now.
Is this Donnie? Is this our friend from CNN, Donnie the Irishman?
He's right here.
Donnie's an assassin. He comes across that little leprechaun thing. He's an assassin. Watch out for him. He's a killer. Watch that guy.
Okay,
stick around. Mike Lindell, Donnie from CNN. Boom, stick around.
And I was devastated by what I saw. I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, this is America.
They almost just killed our president. They almost just murdered him.
We are at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Trump was almost just assassinated. It's the first attempted assassination of a U.S. president in the age of social media.
I'll put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if it was some sort of inside job.
The bullet had barely been fired before there was conspiracy theories everywhere, all over the internet, on the right and on the left, about what had happened or what hadn't really happened. We were just at a vigil where Trump supporters were praying for the former president,
Now we're on our way to an anti-Trump protest that's happening just outside the convention here.
I'm here to protest Trump in a swing state where it matters even more.
And is there a number one issue for you, or?
Yeah, definitely women's rights, abortion laws.
How did you feel when you saw he almost got assassinated?
I didn't feel too passionately in either direction. I think that bad things happen to bad people.
How did you feel when you saw the assassination attempt?
Do you really want to know?
Yes.
The first thing that ran through my head is because we cannot believe this man ever, that it was somehow faked. Now, that a man died, it's horrid. And I think it is a terrible comment on the country state right now that anyone would think anywhere that it's appropriate to shoot at any political candidate. But I couldn't help but wonder, because we've been lied to over and over by this man.
I assume, just as you've watched what Trump supporters say about the election, or how January 6th was Black Lives Matter or an inside job, now you kind of sound like them. You're saying, well, maybe it was a staged assassination attempt.
Right, and that I hate that that's what I'm doing. I hate that that's where I have gone. And I wonder why I've gone there. And is it because I am constantly hearing them say these kind of things? I don't like that this is where we've gotten in this country. Because there has been this pervasive, and it has come mainly from Trump and his supporters, this pervasive misinformation that has become a part of our country.
People like Mary don't really know what to believe, in part because of how fractured our media environment has become. And that brings us here to Media Row.
I've been against political violence, and I hate what happened to Trump.
Real America's Voice, Daily Signal, Frank Speech, these are all media outlets that most Americans have never heard of. But it's where hundreds of thousands, millions of people are getting more and more of their news, their information, and misinformation.
We exist because you guys are doing such a poor job. Our network, and I would say others, are kind of filling the vacuum that the mainstream media, fake news media, were leaving.
Actually, Don Jr. from the Trump campaign realizes just how important this new media universe is, right? He is going from boot to boot here, doing interviews because this is where the audience is. Would you agree?
Hey, I'm going to tell you something, because you're right. You know what? Let me tell you something.
I had barely stepped foot in Media Row before running into Mike Lindell.
The manifestation is people that got their voices taken away. They started podcasts. They started all these news things rose up.
Mike was on his way to do another pillow promotion on the Steve Bannon Show. But since we last met Mike, Bannon had gone to jail and his daughter had taken over hosting.
Mike, I know my dad has said in order to support him, support our sponsors.
I promised your dad when he went in, this is our political prisoner special, exclusive to the War Room. This is the most affordable mattress topper in history.
Trump's assassination attempt injected this year's RNC with a new sense of urgency, but not without a sense of humour.
I've never been to anything like this. This is somewhere between a carnival and a trade fair, and I'm so confused.
What is Trump poetry?
This is the greatest poetry book of all time, written by the greatest poet of our generation. It is his tweets from 2009 to 2019 as concrete poetry in the style of E. Cummings.
I am a defender of Miley Cyrus, who I think is a good person, not because she stays at, let's say, my hotel, but last night's outfit must go.
Are you working here? Oh, you're buying.
I'm buying.
What are you buying?
I'm buying Lee Greenwood's Bible. I want Trump to sign it, and Lee Greenwood, $75.
3 books?
25. What do you think? Should I get it?
I think you should.
Yeah.
What's Patriot Mobile?
What are we?
Yeah.
We're America's only Christian conservative wireless provider.
Patriots only. Patriot Mobile, because you do not want to be with one of those liberal phone networks, all right? But amid the carnival atmosphere, talk of a dark future.
I think if it comes to November and all of a sudden we see the fraud happening and Trump doesn't pull off a win, I think it's going to start a riot.
And the familiar conspiracy theory that undocumented immigrants were going to steal the election in November, also widespread here.
Do you think non-citizens voting is an issue?
Oh, there's no question. It's a huge issue.
Now, only United States citizens should be voting in America.
But they're not going to get a ballot, though, will they? They won't be on a voter roll.
They'll be able to go up to any clerk and ask, who claim that they're a last-minute registrant, and vote.
The conspiracy theories spewed here in Media Row are the same being preached from the podium at the main stage of the RNC.
Biden and Harris want illegals to vote now that they've opened up the border.
I think what we're seeing now is that the border has become even more politicized than ever.
So many of these narratives emerge at the southern border. So we went there to find the facts.
I heard a quote recently that the real crisis at the border is that many Americans have lost their hearts, that they are dehumanizing people out here. We have these flags, they're 30 feet high so that they can be seen for several miles. The blue is the universal symbol of water.
Humane Borders is a charity that gives water to migrants crossing the US-Mexican border.
You've been doing this more than 20 years?
Humane Borders was founded in the year 2000. If you look statistically at who's coming in through the border, immigrants are much less likely to commit crimes than US-born citizens.
The MAGA media universe wants to portray the border in one way.
This, you're like, okay, what's the blue flag, guys? What's the blue flag? We've got water stations now. This is set up here for illegals.
These are military-aged men. Like, they're in their 20s, man, and they're not coming in with families.
You gonna vote for Joe Biden? Yeah, okay. They're all gonna vote for Joe Biden. You did it, Joe.
These are political opportunists who are coming to the border for a photo op to try to convince people that this is a scary place.
As we traveled along the border, we suddenly came upon a group that had just crossed into the US. Mostly children and women, some pregnant, waiting in 100-degree heat.
It's okay? It's okay?
Hey, we have to move to the side because they're gonna get really pissed off at us.
Border Patrol eventually arrived.
Muchacha, siéntese si puede. Siéntese si puede. Siéntese.
This group would be taken in to be processed, and within 24 hours, some of them could be sent back to Mexico. Further down the wall, migrants sat in a makeshift camp, waiting to be picked up by Border Patrol.
Hi, honey. How are you? So do you know what's going to happen when they come to pick you up? One word. I need asylum. Y no firme nada, okay?
Some here were the so-called military-age men Trump world keeps talking about.
When the agent comes, you say, we want asylum. Because you have a right to be here and ask for asylum. Qué bonita.
Dora Rodriguez fled El Salvador and crossed the border into the United States in 1980.
I was just 19 years old, a kid that did not know the world. And then after 5 days wandering this desert in 115 degrees, 13 of my friends died, including 3 kids, 12, 14, and 16. 3 sisters.
Okay, you guys are all right.
The sort of new talking point. These people are coming into the country so they can be used to vote Democrat, so they can steal this next election.
Right. Do you believe that? If you're in your right mind, you will not believe that, because that's not true. People that is coming to this country and have come for centuries. This is not new. People has come to this country because they trust this country. So it's a lot of misinformation, but it's for one purpose, to create fear, because fear sells. We see our people here presenting with their children. You're not telling me that a 5-year-old is coming to take your vote or to invade your cities.
Just like social media and the internet, you know, you can come here and find the story you want to find and the narrative you want to push, right? If I were a guy who's streaming on Facebook and anti-immigrant, I show up here, this is what I see. Like, this is a camp, no sign of kids, just all these young people, military-aged men.
Dollars? For what?
So you can see how the narrative kind of can get shaped very easy by that. I think the people on the left are also wrong to say that it is only kids and women. After we left the border, we headed north to Phoenix in Maricopa County. In 2020, Maricopa became a hotbed of election conspiracy theories after Trump lost here, and it could happen all over again in 2024. You are one of the top election officials here in Maricopa County, and your name is Bill Gates.
It is. It's true.
Nobody ever just says you should trust electronics because you should just trust them. So this is an important step before the election to make sure that the tabulators are working as intended.
We were in Maricopa as the county tested its machines that count votes. Representatives from both political parties were here to witness it for themselves.
And then there are tests after the election as well to make sure that the tabulators stayed consistent and were reading ballots as they should.
Tests like these happen all over the country. They seem to do little to quell conspiracy theories about voting machines.
I don't trust any election that was ever used with the computers, ever. I want to get to paper ballots hand counted.
Everyone votes on paper here. So this is part of these conspiracy theories that people are voting, you know, like touchscreen, like they're ordering a burger at McDonald's. It's on paper, and the paper ballots go through the machines. That's how they're tabulated. But also keep in mind that we do several audits, and one of them is a hand count, a percentage of those votes, to make sure that the hand count is consistent with those machine counts.
Bill and Stephen are both Republicans. They've been battling election conspiracy theories for years, even when they're tweeted by Elon Musk.
I don't know, I guess it just caught me at the moment where I said, I want to say something about this. And so the allegation was that you don't have to be a citizen to be able to vote in Arizona. You must be a citizen. It is unlawful, it is a felony if you vote and you are not a citizen. Your immigration process will become much more challenging.
Look, there are issues at the border. I don't dispute that. But as it relates to voting, it's not something that I'm concerned about. And this is unfortunately just another conspiracy theory that's now being thrown at the American people so that those who maybe don't like where the final results end up will then point to that and say, well, that's why I didn't win.
That's my guys. I've been looking everywhere for you CNN guys.
I've spent a lot of time with Lindell recently. I will say we've had a lot of laughs together. He is an entertaining man. But what Mike Lindell is doing is dangerous, right?
I think anyone who is spreading misinformation about our election system, it's dangerous. Not only is it further rattling people's faith in the system, but in some instances, it leads to threats to our elections workers.
What happens if they steal the election in November?
I honestly think there might be a civil war in our country.
Through Frank's speech,
the answer is people have to put this into their own hands.
Mike has helped create a dangerous myth that a Trump loss in November can only come about through cheating.
Something's happening.
And a world where serial election deniers like Rudy Giuliani have their own show.
A sincere question, because I've been thinking about this a lot. You're addicted to this.
No, I'm not addicted to this. You know what? I want every place I go, we have one shot to get rid of these electronic voting machines that get to paper ballots. I'm passionate about it because if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't stop either.
I think you mean well.
Yeah.
But I think what you're doing is probably pretty dangerous.
Okay, I don't agree with that. Why is that dangerous? That I want us to have secure elections. Tell me that. How come?
Because you're supporting, right? You have helped build a universe through frank speech and frank social.
In 2020, my vote was stolen. This was
A universe of influencers and media outlets spewing misinformation. Misinformation that could cause confusion and chaos this November.
And it's the media outlets like these that are becoming increasingly influential. Trump loses, they're going to be used to build up the narrative that the election was stolen. And if he wins, they're going to be used to push pro-Trump propaganda. And there's going to be a lot more of this.
Welcome to The Whole Story. I'm Anderson Cooper. The spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories has flourished with the rise of online social platforms that cater to extremist views with little to no regard for what's true and what's not. CNN's Donia O'Sullivan has spent years talking to people who fall in for these conspiracy theories. But tonight he's focusing on a group of people you probably haven't heard from. Young men who were once liberal Democrats but have changed their views in some pretty surprising ways, they say, after becoming disillusioned with politics.
I spend a lot of my time at conferences, and there's a subtle art to a successful one. Like making sure there's plenty of refreshments, creating room for stimulating conversation. At a good conference, you can feel like you're at home. But sometimes conferences are a mixed bag.
Cameraman of the year, CNN guy Dowdy.
Sometimes you get a warm welcome. Sometimes you get harassed. Sometimes you even get hacked.
You arrived in Vegas and got hacked within an hour?
Sometimes you have to make your own fun.
Yep. Oh.
It's Memorial Day weekend and I'm not at a barbecue or watching a parade. I'm in Michigan for one of the biggest gatherings of pro-Palestinian activists in the country. But someone who is not welcome here is a 24-year-old named Jackson Hinkle.
You're not prepared to admit that Israel's a terrorist organization.
Yeah, but you're wrong.
Kim Jong-un is a peace-seeking leader, despite what, the talking heads say. We're going to de-NATO-fy Ukraine, and we're going to de-Nazify you.
You just sound completely bonkers.
Jackson is holding another much smaller event for Gaza across town.
What's your name?
Mirk.
Mirk?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
He and his followers call themselves MAGA communists. And that isn't supposed to be a joke.
Hey, so you guys always with Jackson and...
You're a journalist?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Do I not look like one?
The first journalist I ever met.
Well, you've come all this way to be here.
Yeah. I feel like Jackson, he always speaks what he thinks. He doesn't have a filter.
All right, it's about 30 minutes to go. But yeah, let's see if they sell it out. I don't know. I don't know what to... I do not know what to expect. A lot of kids in suits.
Among the suits, a Democrat-turned-MAGA communist in a Hawaiian tank top and flip-flops, who calls himself Charmhole.
Charmhole. Follow me on everything.
So that's your online name?
Yeah, my online name.
Not
my actual name is Adam Service.
Okay.
I'm incredibly American, born and raised in Ohio.
So you're a streamer?
Yeah. I've been on Twitch, but I've been banned off Twitch a few times. They don't like me because I'm very political, like these guys, my heroes, which is weird to say since they're younger than me. But
these guys are your heroes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously?
Yeah. I wouldn't be here if they weren't.
So are you a MAGA communist?
Absolutely, MAGA communist. I used to hate Trump. I would call him old. Not sure if I'm allowed to cuss or say bad things.
No, you can cuss, yeah.
Well, I used to call him a pedophile, illiterate retard, stuff like that, because I was a big Bernie bro, and I was like, I'll do anything for Bernie, anything, right? And that's why I love these guys, because they just assume you're smart, they're going to tell you all the smartest stuff, and if you don't get it, then you're just going to miss out on the next big thing, which hopefully is MAGA communism, or at least America's form of communism.
MAGA communism.
MAGA communism.
You know, people watching CNN are going to say, you're crazy.
Absolutely. I would hope so.
How's it going, everybody? All right. This is great. It's good to be here. We actually have CNN in the building with us tonight. They're filming some propaganda documentary, which
The crowd here was mostly male and mostly white.
You know, today's event is called Free America to Free Palestine. Shout out to the AI gods for giving me this beautiful shot of the American cowboys with the Palestine flag. We need to stop supporting, you know, these genocidal maniacs, and we need to, of course, arrest everyone who is committing these crimes at this very moment, which is almost all of Congress and the White House.
But Jackson had barely started speaking about Gaza
I've been to Russia, I've been to China. Their major cities are much nicer.
before he launched into pro-Russia and pro-China talking points.
Now, Russia's better and stronger than ever before, and their leader has a very high approval rating. The more America supports real terrorist entities like Israel, real terrorist countries like Ukraine, the more that we strengthen our actual enemies. And I will just say once and for all, so Piers Morgan never has to ask me again, no, I do not condemn Hamas. Very simple.
Jackson's social media following skyrocketed after the October 7th attack on Israel.
Joe Biden is plunging us into a fascist state.
And he's a big fan of Vladimir Putin.
Most of what is said about Vladimir Putin in the mainstream press is just factually not true. We as communists want to unite with MAGA voters and finish the job of Donald Trump.
As the event came to a close, superfans lined up to meet Jackson.
That was the most inspiring thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen Barack Obama speak. That was something to behold, for sure. You see all the people there and you think, wow, I'm really a part of something.
I really cannot tell if you're doing a bit.
But not everyone who came here was a fan of Jackson's.
Now, what did you think?
I think he's an insane person.
Insane?
Yeah, I think he's insane. Rightfully criticizes America where they should be criticized, but then glorifies the Chinese Communist Party, North Korea, terrorists, you know, that have kidnapped and murdered people. I think it's weird how he ties himself to MAGA and MAGA communism when Donald Trump is the most pro-Israeli president that's ever lived. MAGA communism are complete polar opposites of each other.
Are you going to try to speak to him?
Yeah, I'm going to try to speak to him.
Okay.
I'm going to do so as a gentleman.
Nice to meet you.
Lane Kendall, a provocateur in his own right.
Let's ask about
Who propped
Palestine.
up Hamas? Why do we think Hamas had the ability to do what they did?
That's called propaganda.
Has a history of appearing on online conservative media.
Good. There's one thing when you talk about it, I want to make sure I understand. When you go into things about China, Russia, Iran, especially China, you omit so much about them. I'm from Texas. And the things that you're omitting. I have lived in China. I went to Tsinghua University. You don't say that 600 million people in the country still live on less than $1.40 a day.
Well,
why don't you say those things?
Okay. You're very, very emotional, like a woman.
Jackson quickly realized that he wasn't talking to just another fan.
All right. CNN propaganda. This guy's a CNN agent.
I think CNN is the worst outlet in the country.
Time to get out, buddy. Danny.
Is it the Kremlin?
Get this guy out.
Didn't answer the question, did he? Didn't think so. Put that on CNN.
But the men that we met here weren't always this way.
My name's Jackson Hinkle.
A few years ago, Jackson was campaigning for progressive causes.
I was BLM originally. BLM has been co-opted by NATO, by the government.
And Adam, aka Charmhole, had changed as well.
So you used to be a big liberal. You used to be a big liberal.
Absolutely.
A big Democrat.
Yeah.
You were a Bernie bro?
Bernie bro, through and through.
I wanted to find out what had made them change.
Why do you think the Russians like you so much?
Well, I speak truth.
Good to see you, man.
American politics is schizophrenic. You got one side saying you're crazy, you got the other side saying you're crazy.
Conspiracy charm hole. Adam Service. Adam campaigned for Bernie Sanders. Now he's a big fan of Jackson Hinkle, and in his own words, he is terminally online. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Gotten taller since I've seen you now.
I've gotten shorter. I think my dad's hiding.
He doesn't want to be on CNN?
Dad was here to talk all about how this is a funeral parlor.
This was a funeral parlor?
Yeah, like 100 years ago. Yeah, this is actually my mom's hometown.
Okay.
Her dad, World War II vet, Pacific Theater. So he passed away, I believe, 4 years ago, and then my mom passed away 2 years ago.
Okay.
Her dad always had a saying, that was his chair. If he'd go up to the bathroom or cook something, right, he'd jump in his chair, and then he'd come out and he'd say, "Would you jump in my grave as fast?" 2 years later, she jumped right in.
That's here, by the way. Thanks. All right, I need to see where you are terminally online.
Yeah. Clean up a little bit for you.
Thank you.
So what I've got is 2K monitor right here, curved Samsung Odyssey G7. Love this sucker, 240 frames a second.
Could I pull in a chair maybe to sit with you? Or...
Oh, actually, yeah. Look.
Wow, wow. Like millions of other video gamers, Adam watches live streams on platforms like Twitch, where fellow gamers often talk politics. How many hours a day would you say you play up here?
A day. Play? Excuse me? This is work right now. This is research. I'm listening to Dan Bongino while also talking to you and playing Championship Rocket League. I'm God Gamer, all right? Remember that.
So how many hours a day are you God gaming?
I mean, it's a full-time job. So anywhere from 6 to 10 hours.
Wow.
It's hard to understand how disgusting politics is.
True. Politics is disgusting. So normally what I'll have is, I got Discord, everything loading up, Rumble. So I got Bongino, ex-Secret Service, telling me all about how Jill Biden and Coco Cam almost allowed Trump to get JFK'd. And I'll do that while playing video games.
Is there a Taco Bell here? I've never had a Taco Bell.
You've never had Taco Bell? There's nothing more American than Taco Bell.
Yeah, could I get 4 cheesy street chalupas?
I'm sorry, but we don't serve the street chalupas anymore.
Dang! That's okay. Nice. Yeah, just rip it open.
That's not bad.
Hope it was worth it. No, just never have leftover Taco Bell.
Adam had moved back to his small hometown in rural Ohio after years of living in Bloomington, Indiana, a city about 4 hours away. Wait, so tell me though, Jackson Hinkle.
Yeah.
MAGA communism.
Oh yeah, MAGA communism.
MAGA communism sounds like the dumbest thing ever to me. How can you define it?
You cannot define it to boomers, right?
Well, boomers... I'm a millennial, I think.
Right, yeah, okay, so it's like I said, you have to remember this. Communism is the Russian word for conservatism.
No, it's not.
You at the next intersection, you want to take a left, or else we're just going to see a whole bunch of beans and corn.
You ever miss the bright lights of Bloomington?
No, not at all.
I feel like you view your time in Indiana in the city as kind of like a period of your life that's over now, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. Campaign for Bernie,
You were dating.
Calling all my Facebook friends racist because they didn't want to vote for Obama,
Yeah. Last time I saw you, Biden was still in the race. So wait, you're guessing you're just not a Harris fan.
She's a Zogbot.
What the fuck is a Zogbot?
You don't know what a Zogbot? All right, Zionist-operated government. We are...
Adam casually banters in the kind of hateful speech he regularly sees in memes and online slang. But what happens in November?
What happens?
If Harris wins?
If they don't make it too big to rig and cheat again like they did 4 years ago, because the DNC definitely cheats, which Bernie just admitted live.
So you're saying the only way Harris could win is if they cheat?
Yeah, 1,000%. See, this is the thing, and this is probably what you're going to cut this all up into, is me being like a really bad, evil, white man racist that, oh man, I just hate Democrats, I hate liberals, like, right, a bunch of commies, and it's like, okay, one, I was just a part of them, like 4 years ago. I was in it, right? I've been betrayed by them multiple times. So now I'm trying my hand at being betrayed by the Republican Party.
Oh, nice!
But Adam's departure from the left has taken him down a dark path to people like white supremacist Nick Fuentes, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, and MAGA communist Jackson Hinkle. Adam is among the 8% of Bernie Sanders supporters in the 2020 Democratic primary who are now pro-Trump.
And you actually find Jackson Hinkle impressive? You actually
Fundamentally, I have to. Because, one, he's really good looking. He's fundamentally a handsome man, right?
When we first met, you said that being an American man, being masculine, it's been kind of equated with toxicity.
That's because it is, by nature. We're naturally acidic, but we can also bust nuts and create more humans.
But the woman has a role in that too, right?
Well, yeah, they make the men. That's why my mom would always say there's two things she ever wanted to do in her life: be a nurse and have boys. She did both. That's why she died happy, you know? She died fulfilled. This is why I was such a liberal growing up, is because my dad would always listen to Rush Limbaugh, you know, and he's always yelling, and he's really mad about everything, and everything's going to shit, you know, and I was like, according to Mom, this is toxic, this is bad. So then I just naturally, you know, I had an aversion to conservatism and men and masculinity. That's why I got called gay for so much. I mean, that and the blonde hair.
You got called gay?
Yeah, all the time. In this park, constantly.
But so one thing you brought up, you had a spell in a mental health hospital. Do you take any meds?
They
for
tried to get me
depression?
on Zyprexa. It was like $280 a month.
Right.
I laughed at that. I was like, yeah, right.
If you could afford it, would you?
No. No, I just smoked weed instead.
I've been on antidepressants and stuff for about 12 years now.
Oh my Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you're so good at being true neutral. You got no emotions to mess with you. Hey, Donnie, what's up today? How you feeling? Yes.
Probably grew up in a family like yours.
Yeah? Did the playground kids call you gay?
No, they called me fat though.
You were always this fat?
Yes.
You can change. You get off those mood stabilizers, start throwing the b-ball.
Adam's use of homophobic, racist, and anti-Semitic slurs is something that he sees as quote-unquote edgy.
You keep saying Zogbot.
I'm only using Zogbot because I've been listening to a lot of Nick Fuentes.
You're not a Nick Fuentes fan?
Not necessarily. I think that...
Because he's a white supremacist.
Well, think about it.
He's a white supremacist.
Okay. He's a white proponent.
He's an anti-Semite.
He's racefully
He is an anti-Semite.
white. He loves Kanye. And Alex Jones, who they've been trying to nail for God knows how long now.
You're an Alex Jones fan?
Absolutely. I am now, absolutely.
But you don't believe the stuff he said about Sandy Hook kids?
I mean,
Why
I
is
wasn't
it?
there.
This
I wasn't
shouldn't be.
there. I did
this
it first.
Shouldn't be a
I was
difficult, this shouldn't be a difficult question for you to answer.
Well, look at the evidence. Let's say that he started to look into it, and it turns out Obama had those kids murdered on purpose.
But he didn't.
But if they died, that's still a possibility because he was president. And by purpose, I still mean negligence.
What about the parents of the children, right?
What about them?
But isn't what
Look, it
Alex
depends.
Jones doing is making these tragedies so much worse?
No. How do you get worse than child death?
I'll tell you how.
How?
By having idiots who watch Alex Jones show up and start harassing the parents of the children who died in the Sandy Hook shooting. That's how you make it worse.
Adam and I were going around in circles on this nonsense when my photographer Andrew weighed in from behind the camera.
I just want to say something. I see a lot of you in me.
Yeah.
What if I told you I grew up 5 minutes from Sandy Hook? Just I was there, you know, like I was there right away.
You know somebody?
I knew the nurse. Her mother was killed that day, and I grew up with her daughter. And everyone in town knows the dad.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, small town, when something like that happens. That's why I said earlier that maybe it was Obama who killed those children.
Andrew, my photographer, had briefly brought a dose of reality to the fantasy world that Adam lives in online. We left Adam to travel to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where we were about to meet one of his former Twitch heroes, Hassan Piker.
What is going on with this, bro? Chicago put some crazy shit on their dog.
And some other familiar faces.
Mike. Mike Lindell's in here.
Dude, have you seen
Pillow
him yet?
Guy's here? Yeah. He has no mustache.
Oh, he actually shaved it? Oh my god, we have to find him.
Well, we're interviewing each other.
It's the first morning of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and pro-Palestinian protesters are already gathering.
I think people here came in peace. I'm literally came in peace. I'm asking for peace.
Well, I'm hoping to shit up without getting arrested.
Dude, chill out. Chill out. We're all pressed.
Did you check in yet?
It is tense here.
Yeah. Then why did we run? We're sorry about that, honestly.
The organizers are right to be worried.
Because these guys. They're scumbags. They're ruining America.
Not everyone here is on their side.
Loads of pro-Palestine demonstrators gathering over here, small group of pro-Israeli demonstrators, and among them we found some MAGA influencers.
Hey, who are you with?
CNN.
Oh no!
We watched as far-right troll and Pizzagate conspiracy theorist Jack Posobiec tried to disguise himself as a pro-Palestine protester.
Now, the mainstream media isn't going to be out here. I haven't seen anyone from the mainstream media that's hanging out here.
But his disguise didn't work out.
Hey, Jack! How are you? This is a right-wing fascist.
And Jack the Troll got trolled.
How many abortions have you had today? DNC. I'm getting paid by George Soros to have an abortion on the stage.
I'll be broadcasting live.
But it's not just outside the event. This year's DNC was the first where creators or influencers were treated the same as the mainstream press. One of the biggest stars in the new world of news consumption is Hassan Piker.
I'll put this in the trunk too. How are you letting this guy drive?
How do you explain what it is you do?
I have a pretty easy explanation for people that are older. I basically do what Rush Limbaugh used to do, right? But online instead of on radio. And also, I don't have brainworms.
This game is woke.
Hassan has almost 3 million followers on the video game streaming platform Twitch.
I'm talking for 8 to 10 hours every day.
8 to 10 hours a day?
Yeah.
Where he streams live almost all day watching the news.
The former president was found guilty of all 34 felony counts teen election.
And playing video games.
How do we fight again? I totally forgot.
Sometimes playing a character named after me. He even tries to do an Irish accent.
My name is Donny O'Sullivan, sir. I'm fascinated with Republicans, and I obviously always love the hits that you would do when you go to these rallies and you talk to them.
Work it out. People might confuse us.
Yeah.
You're 6'4", built, like myself. Are you a Harris supporter?
I wouldn't say I'm a Harris supporter.
You'll vote for her?
Maybe. We'll see. I get a lot of criticism from the Democratic Party loyalists regardless.
Yeah.
Hassan was about to try and live stream all day from the DNC.
Pray to God that the internet is stable. Wait, this is my permanent space? This is fire. I mean, this is cool, and it's much cooler than I anticipated.
I can see CNN from here. Anderson! There's a restraining order. So this is in your rider?
that would not be in my rider.
Protein. We need more protein in here.
It would feature Core Power Elite. 42 grams of protein, 230 calories. Sick!
On the face of it, Hassan is a bro, one of these so-called masculine men that Jackson and Charmhold revere and aspire to be.
Do you know about this MAGA communism?
Yes, Jackson Hinkle being one of them. He was like a Bernie bro, I think, back in the day. I don't know anything about the guy.
You were a Bernie guy, you were a Bernie bro?
Yeah, I like Bernie a lot, yeah.
But Hassan says his brand of masculinity is very, very different to Jackson's.
Hitler, at the end of the war, he killed himself. He's a faggot.
Like, how does this happen? Where you are to the right of Adolf Hitler.
What is it about some of these guys that has made them go from far left to far right?
Like every young man at a certain point in their lives have had some kind of insecurity, whether it be about their sexuality or whether it be about their future prospects or whatever. And I think that a lot of these guys take advantage of that and present this false narrative that in order to be a man, you got to be homophobic. It's no, a real man is going to want to protect people who are marginalized.
It really is getting intertwined more and more with politics, where a lot of
young men who are disillusioned for whatever reason. They don't have a girlfriend, they don't have a job, and they have people telling them, wait, this is not your fault. And to some extent, you know, it's a societal issue, of course, but here specifically is who to blame, in a way that can have profound impacts for our society and our politics.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct, which is why I always advocate to fix the underlying material inequalities that creates a perfect opportunity for these kind of guys to be radicalized in this way.
The DNC had given Hassan a nice setup.
Whoa, I just dropped 0. What is happening?
But didn't give the Twitch streamer the thing he needed most, a working internet connection.
It's completely gone. The internet is completely gone. They shut it off.
With the great Patti LaBelle rehearsing behind him,
what the
we left Hassan to figure out his technical difficulties. As we moved around the DNC, we saw more and more creators and influencers, each one trying to upstage the other.
Okay, so I'm here at the Democratic
DNC Day 1.
What is a skibbity?
That's such BS. So you got Ben and Ari here. You got a right-wing guy versus a really big supporter for Harris here. I gotta give it to them. They are arguing statistics and policies. It hasn't devolved into culture war bullshit yet.
But that didn't last long.
Okay, well, I did it. I used the gender-neutral bathroom, and out there, here you are, there is something wrong with that.
Ben had soon moved on to the convention's gender-neutral restrooms.
How was that experience?
I'll tell you what.
He was joined at the restrooms by Mike Lindell, the pillow salesman and election denier who was also in disguise.
Shaving off my mustache, we're going inside the Democrat convention in disguise. Are you from Ireland?
I did not recognize you.
Mike isn't exactly discreet.
I snuck in, I'm in the Democrat convention.
Lindell debated too, with a 12-year-old content creator.
257,000 votes. This happened last week. A judge ruled in Georgia.
Who wasn't buying it.
So your sources trust me, bro? That's your source? He provided no facts, no sources.
Mike Lindell just got rolled by a 12-year-old.
Jackson Hinkle didn't make it to Chicago for the convention this summer, but he had made multiple trips to Russia.
Now I'm in Vladivostok. I'm safe for the time being.
I wanted to find out who Jackson really is, so we finally got to speak to him.
You are an absolute gift to the propagandists in Russia and China.
I'm a gift to the free people of the world.
And to some of the people who knew him best.
Are you worried for him?
I'm more worried for myself doing this right now, honestly, but
why?
I don't want his army coming after me for speaking out against the MAGA communism movement.
Activity.
300 Biden, man. 300 Biden. He's my president.
But this is an election year, and this is Orange County in Southern California.
I voted for Reagan.
Yeah.
I voted for Perot. And ever since then, I've voted Democrat. I feel heartbroken about corruption of the Democratic Party.
Irina Morris voted Democrat for decades, but since RFK dropped out of the race and endorsed Trump, she says she'll now probably vote MAGA.
I'm voting against the appointee from the swamp factory.
Jackson Hinkle has had a similar, albeit more dramatic journey from the political left to the political right. Before he was a social media firebrand and before he was a darling of the Kremlin and Russian state TV, Jackson grew up here. And just a few short years ago, he was a soft-spoken kid who picked up trash on the beach and organized to cut down on plastics in his school.
We really bonded because we were in the same environmental science class.
Josh Green was friends with Jackson all throughout their teens.
We were some of the few liberal students in our entire school. We had a very conservative student body.
Josh and Jackson campaigned for liberal causes together.
And so we would often be ridiculed for standing up for progressive issues like the environment or gun safety or gay rights. You know, people thought that we were, soft leftist snowflakes.
After Jackson graduated high school, he was the youngest person here to run for city council.
I think that a good city council candidate has to be well-versed on the issues.
Orange County is very conservative. What are you rascally kids up to in this run for office?
We're up to a lot right now.
He had a remarkable little career considering he was just out of high school. He's putting himself through junior college.
And he was responsible for all the solar panels that you see around San Clemente High School, and that was his idea. And he just had that drive, that you see in some young people, but not a lot of them.
A natural communicator.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Jackson lost his election bid and sometime thereafter lost his youthful politics as well.
A lot of what I had been force-fed through my education as a young individual was all propaganda.
Something had turned him into this.
You're gonna kind of go down the path of faggots like that. They were all transgenders and gays.
The Nazis?
Yes.
Hey, man.
I'd been searching for answers about Jackson, and he agreed to sit down and talk to me directly.
You're promoting something called MAGA communism.
Yes.
Which to a lot of people is going to sound moronic.
Well, I think it causes a lot of people to reassess their cancellation of the MAGA working class, and they've been written off, they've been called racist, or any sorts of names. They've just been canceled.
You are in some ways the quintessential American man, right? You're surfer guy, California. So for the Russians or the Chinese to have somebody like you to go over there and basically shit all over America.
No shitting on America. I love this country, I love the people. I just want it to be better.
Is there not a way to do that without having to fly back and forth to Moscow and seem to be embracing authoritarian regimes?
Well, they're far less authoritarian than the United States.
Come on, man.
Ultimately,
ultimately,
I live in the generation where for the first time there's going to be a lower standard of living than the previous generation. That's not good.
And I mean, I hear all that, but when you say Russia and China have got it better.
Well, their major cities are much nicer. If you go and take high-speed rail hours into China.
You can't genuinely say that people in Russia and people in China have more liberties than people in the United States.
Well, there's no free speech.
You have a lot of free speech.
Really? You think I have free speech?
You don't think you have free speech?
No. I mean, what's the public square today? It's obviously social media.
You have 3 million followers on X. You can post whatever you want. You're hosting events here. How do you not have free speech? What part of your speech is being curtailed?
It's very simple. It's very simple. Yes, I have 3 million followers on X. But what about Instagram? I've been banned. YouTube, I've been banned. I was banned from Raya, a dating site.
Jackson's bans might have something to do with his repeated sharings of hateful posts and his celebrations of violence.
You look like you're in pain.
I'd been left frustrated and confused by Jackson. Did he really believe all the stuff he was saying, or was he just doing it all for social media clout or for money?
I just don't know if I believe you or not.
Whatever his motivations, his message and his propaganda is resonating.
Like Donald Trump, Jackson has definitely found a way to build an audience of people who feel disenfranchised or feel pushed away by our society and our system.
Was there ever a moment for you where you were like, wait, what the hell is going on with my friend?
One of the first was when he did the interview with Tucker Carlson.
So Biden is plunging us into a fascist state?
Because Tucker Carlson is an asshole. Somebody who, like Jackson, either believes what they're saying or because they get paid a lot to do it. Jackson describes himself as a communist, right? Why? Because he smoked a lot of weed and read Karl Marx. He's the biggest fucking capitalist I've ever seen. I'm so disappointed in what's happened to Jackson. He had this opportunity to be something really positive, but he has become the king of conspiracy theories.
The king of conspiracy theories.
Have you heard of somebody called Jackson Hinkle?
Yes.
What do you think about him?
Not my politics at all.
Jackson had been condemned and disavowed by established pro-Palestinian activists.
People see our cause and our issue as their playground a lot of the times.
But he isn't alone in resetting his political compass.
I feel more like a man already just listening to these gentlemen.
And some of it reflects a big change in American politics.
I think a lot of the younger generation, they have a different perspective of U.S. history of colonialization. They're skeptical of what the government's telling them.
We're with Wyatt.
Oh, wow. This is a great setup. And where's CNN from here?
He shaved his mustache in an effort to be incognito.
Back at the DNC,
Dude, I have a better location than Jake Tapper. You should tell Jake that.
Hassan had finally got some working internet.
You are the news now.
I think most people who are like not exactly fans of my perspective are still like, well, that's a famous guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hassan streams live on Twitch pretty much everywhere he goes, even when he's grabbing lunch. He's not a Jackson Hinkle fan and actively calls out the kind of hate Jackson spreads. But
I will say this. There are a lot of people that are on the payroll of the American government, or at least working at the behest of the American military-industrial complex, that say a metric ton of propaganda that is never considered propaganda in that same vein as what Jackson Hinkle is doing. Now, I don't even know what his background is in terms of like if he's getting funded by foreign governments or whatnot.
for all his chauvinism and misinformation, Jackson is speaking to a different understanding of America.
COVID changed the world. There was a radicalization on the right when it came to lockdowns and it came to masks.
Yeah.
What about on the other side?
The American project hinges on being able to afford your treats. The moment that your access to your treats that are affordable are restricted, everything will fall apart. Society collapses. Because then you're like, well, what the am I doing this for? You know? I have a shit-ass job, no future prospects, barely can make payments, but at least I can go to Applebee's and get $5 jalapeno poppers, right? Okay, and hang out with the boys and slam a couple brews, watch some football. COVID broke that a little bit. All of a sudden, everyone was like, well, okay, what's the whole purpose of this then? If I can't have my treats. I think that was like the breaking point for a lot of people.
Jackson Hinkle, 8 years ago, was like a Bernie kid. Now he's hanging out at the Kremlin, basically.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen?
I don't think his political compass is very well aligned.
Joshua Frank is the editor of Counterpunch, one of the best-known left-wing magazines in the world.
I certainly don't think he's on the left. I don't know what a mega communist actually is, and I don't think he does.
One thing that Jackson and I can agree on, we're both American patriots in the sense that we're willing to criticize our own country. I don't disagree with everything that he says. I think there's way too much Russia phobia in this country. Obviously, the war with Russia and Ukraine is horrible, but I think this country needs to eventually work with countries like Russia and China.
You know, I think a lot of the younger generation, they have a different perspective of U.S. history of colonialization. They're further away from World War II and that narrative. They're skeptical of what the government's telling them to believe, especially when they're seeing an alternative in their social media feeds. But that's also where it can get kind of dangerous, because you do have to have some sense of media literacy.
Yeah, because it's one thing having a healthy skepticism of any media outlet, really, right? And any narrative that's being pushed. But on the other hand, what you have is people totally abandoning journalism, getting their news from somebody like Jackson Hinkle.
If you or a loved one has ever been fooled by Western propaganda about Ukraine, I don't blame you.
He'll post stuff that is so infuriatingly ill-informed. So many people in his comments, in his community, just take what he's saying as the truth.
Jackson is a Russian propaganda dream, right?
Yeah. Yeah, whether he's doing it and he's on a payroll or not, they're getting a great bargain, right? I mean, if the guy was actually on the left, he would talk about the press in Russia and the crackdown on the free press. They would talk about these things, but they don't, right? And why is that? It raises some flags for me.
Hey, Jackson.
How's it going?
You're breaking up a little bit, but that's okay.
Good. Here in Moscow, Russia. Yes, I see that it is trying to reconnect the internet.
Now he's totally frozen.
When I next spoke to Jackson, he was back in Russia. The Kremlin had organized to bring him to parts of Ukraine it had illegally invaded.
Are they brainwashing you?
No, I think the only people who are being brainwashed are the people paid by the military-industrial complex to spout certain views.
You haven't gone kind of full Tucker Carlson yet, though? You haven't gone to a supermarket and started sniffing bread?
Oh, come on. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized.
Jackson denies taking money from the Russian government. You're a guest, basically, of the Russian Foreign Ministry, right?
There's multiple private and public individuals that I think are supporting my efforts to see the country and you know, showing me the truth about Russia. I pay for my travels. I pay for my hotel expenses.
Every time I think maybe this guy is mature, you tweet something stupid. You did a poll. You're facing a death sentence before a judge, but the judge is on her period. Are you okay with this? Like, are you just a straight up sexist? I just don't understand. What's the deal with this sort of stuff?
Well, of course, you know, you have to introduce comedy into the dark times. But
Jackson and his followers have a warped view of women and of the world.
So I was dating all these women who were LARPing as men, who want power for themselves, who want money, who want to be like men, unlike a traditional woman, and they all failed. Game theory suggests that the problem is not me.
But in an election year like this, a lot of things get warped.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
My mom actually seen a post on Facebook. There was Haitians in a white van driving around the neighborhoods collecting cats.
For what?
Skinning them and eating them.
We've heard from a number of constituents on the ground, Caitlin, who both firsthand and secondhand reports saying this stuff is happening.
If someone calls your office and says they saw Bigfoot, that doesn't mean they saw Bigfoot.
But J.D. Vance has also been the target of ridiculous conspiracy theories.
Let me break it down. Yesterday, multiple social media accounts spread fake claims that in his book, Hillbilly Elegy, Vance describes having sex with a couch.
Sitting on a hard couch here.
Not my thing, but maybe it's J.D. Vance's. You know, it's funny, my mom was asking me about it, and she asked if it was true.
A lewd conspiracy theory about J.D. Vance and a couch doesn't quite undermine American democracy the same way as for years falsely claiming an election was stolen. But it does show how a conspiracy theory that might seem crazy or clearly a joke to some of us might not to someone else, especially if it plays into their political biases.
So, but your mom, who's a Democrat?
Anti-Trump, I would call her.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she was genuinely wondering, did that happen?
Yeah, did that happen?
Yeah.
And that was after when Walz made the comment in his speech.
I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there?
But I also think that that's our day and age with politics, right? You have someone like Trump and Vance out there saying a million things every day. So the Democrats pushing back in a funny way. It's kind of like they ask for it, right?
I spend a lot of my time talking to Trump supporters, trying to understand the rabbit holes people go down. On your stream, you have a bit of fun with it sometimes. I think you also refer sometimes to Trump supporters as hogs. So you're not going to take the vaccine?
Absolutely not.
What if Trump came out and said, please take this vaccine?
No, I don't believe he'll take it.
Yeah, well, he did. Idiot.
But you must feel some empathy at times, some sympathy.
Oh, yeah.
Some people genuinely believe this stuff.
I do ultimately still want to change the minds of people. I don't necessarily fault individuals for going down this rabbit hole because I understand that we're all, in some ways, victim to propaganda. We cannot escape propaganda.
Rachel Maddow, she's broke my heart. Rachel, I thought you'd tell me the story.
More and more of us have people we love, our family, our friends, falling down rabbit holes. Rabbit holes that stoke fear and promote hate. Rabbit holes that can transform people from who they used to be. And rabbit holes that can even take them into war zones at the other side of the world. Are you being followed by like the Russian security services, or for that matter, the CIA? I mean, surely the American government knows that you're there.
Well, I think if the CIA or the Russian intelligence is doing their job properly, I wouldn't know, and I don't know.
Okay, well, bring me back a fridge magnet or something, will you?
I've actually got a special gift for you. No, you'll like it, I promise.
Hello and welcome to our viewers joining us here in the United States, around the world, and streaming us on CNN Max. I'm Rosemary Church. Just ahead, with just 15 days to go, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are on a campaign blitz through the battleground states, hoping to pick up the support they need to pull ahead in the race. Israel launches a wave of airstrikes across Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah-affiliated financial institutions, and Oscar hammers Cuba, complicating efforts to restore power on the island after 3 days in the dark.
Live from Atlanta, this is CNN Newsroom with Rosemary Church.
And we start with this breaking news coming to us from Kyiv. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has made an unannounced visit to the Ukrainian capital. This follows a meeting in Brussels last week with his counterparts in NATO. High on the agenda, questions from allies about the upcoming election and how it might impact Ukraine aid. Specifically, concerns that a potential Trump victory could jeopardize future U.S. aid to Ukraine. Sources familiar with the meeting tell us Austin said that while he can't predict the future, there is still bipartisan support for Ukraine in Congress. NATO officials say they are preparing for the US to take on a lesser role. Well, CNN's Natasha Bertrand is travelling with the Defence Secretary and joins us now on the phone. So, Natasha, what is the significance of this visit?
Yeah, Rosemary, I mean, this is probably most likely the final time that a senior U.S. official is going to be visiting Ukraine before the election, which, of course, is in just over 2 weeks. And so this is really an opportunity for the Secretary of Defense to meet with his counterparts, including President Zelensky and Defense Minister Umerov, to get a better sense of what they will need, not only right now in terms of fighting the Russians, but more importantly, through the next year, how the U.S. can continue to kind of funnel supplies to them and help them best achieve their war aims. Now, of course, one of the biggest questions that's hanging over all of this is whether any of that is even going to be relevant in a few months' time, because there could very well be a new administration, and Donald Trump has questioned openly whether the U.S. should continue supporting Ukraine. He recently called President Zelensky a salesman and said that Zelensky should never have let the war start. Of course, we know that it was Russia that invaded Ukraine. And so there's a lot of anxiety, of course, here in Kyiv about just what comes next, what is going to happen in the next year, but particularly, heading into the brutal winter months when, Russia is bound to start attacking critical infrastructure in Ukraine. The efforts to shore up those power grids are happening right now. And the U.S. has already started shipping winter weather gear, for example, to Ukrainian soldiers. And so this meeting is going to be a chance for Secretary Austin to kind of, go over the arc of the relationship between Ukraine and the U.S. over the last 2+ years of war, and also, kind of try to reassure them that U.S. support is going to continue. However, it is anyone's guess just how robust that support is going to be over the next year.
And Natasha, that is the big issue, isn't it? There is panic in Ukraine about the possibility of a Trump win in this election, just 2 weeks away from that. What is the sentiment overall? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, the Ukrainians are somewhat on the back foot right now, just in terms of the war that they're fighting against the Russians. I mean, the Russians are continuing to make small but tactical gains in eastern Ukraine. They are throwing thousands and thousands of men per month, as many as 30,000 men per month at the front lines. Ukraine, meanwhile, is suffering from a manpower shortage. And, all of this, added to the fact that it's unclear just how much the U.S., their biggest military supporter, is going to be able to continue to do that over the next year, is creating this very palpable sense of anxiety. And I think that is why Secretary Austin wanted to come here to Kyiv to try to reassure, Zelensky and Defense Minister Umerov that there is still bipartisan support in Congress, at least, for supporting Ukraine, and that, if nothing else, then he is confident that that support is going to continue regardless of whoever is the president. Rosemary.
All right. Thanks to Natasha Bertrand joining us on the line from Kyiv. Many thanks. Well, let's turn to U.S. politics now. And Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have 15 days left to convince voters they are the right choice to lead the U.S. for the next 4 years. And the candidates are hitting the campaign trail hard, trading barbs and sometimes personal attacks as they look to pick up the support they each need to pull ahead in the extremely tight race. The entire election is expected to come down to just a few battleground states, and that's where Harris and Trump will be focusing their attention in the time that remains. Trump will spend Monday traveling in North Carolina, making an appearance in the storm-ravaged town of Asheville and holding a campaign rally in Greenville. Harris will be joined by former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney on a swing through the key states of Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin, where the vice president will speak to Republican-leaning voters. Donald Trump spent Sunday on the stump in Pennsylvania, and after making headlines on Saturday with a meandering story about Arnold Palmer that included a vulgar reference to the golf legend's genitals, the former president kept it more low-key, this time focusing mostly on attacking his opponent. Danny Freeman has a report.
On Sunday evening, frankly, we saw a more disciplined former President Donald Trump on the campaign trail here in Pennsylvania. There were far fewer tangents. The event was even shorter than normal, and it certainly seemed like the former ESPN host who moderated the event, plus the campaign-selected voters who asked the candidate questions, really were able to keep former President Donald Trump more on track throughout the evening. He emphasized his proposals on the economy, including no taxes on tips and overtime, talked about supporting fracking, and, of course, he mostly railed against the Biden administration when it comes to immigration. Now, there were, of course, several exaggerations when it came to the subjects of the economy, immigration, and crime, and there were some of his normal asides. He spoke about bragging about his poll numbers. He also aired some of his grievances against ABC News for the last presidential debate, but there was nothing particularly vulgar or odd like we saw at Saturday evening's rally in Western Pennsylvania, for example, that odd Arnold Palmer story. Trump did, however, continue to boost his new campaign surrogate, Elon Musk, the billionaire who has been stumping for him in Pennsylvania over the course of the weekend. In fact, even including offering a raffle of $1 million to supporters who signed a petition to get into some of the events, which some legal experts tell CNN it might be illegal. But take a listen to what the former president said this evening about both Harris and Elon Musk.
This woman is so incompetent. She's so bad. You cannot, and I would normally not like to speak like that. If they get chosen, our country's finished. You know, Elon Musk is a very smart guy. You got to see his endorsement. He said, if this election isn't won by Donald Trump, our country is essentially finished.
And earlier on Sunday, former President Trump stopped by a McDonald's in all-important Bucks County in the suburbs of Philadelphia. He was seen doing a photo op, making fries in the fryer, and also serving some patrons from the drive-thru. Danny Freeman, CNN, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Kamala Harris focused her campaign efforts on the key state of Georgia at a church in suburban Atlanta. She urged Georgians to cast their ballots as soon as possible. She also sat down for a conversation with MSNBC's Al Sharpton, where she explained why she feels Donald Trump is simply not fit to lead the country. Eva McCand has more.
In an interview with Al Sharpton, the vice president arguing when the former president demeans her, he is denigrating the office of the presidency and that he lacks a basic standard to return to the White House. And we have seen the vice president employ this argument with increasing frequency over the last several days. It seems targeted to a very specific type of voter, a voter that perhaps doesn't agree with her on every policy matter, but is in alignment with this broader argument that the former president is unfit for the White House. Take a listen.
You know, we as representing the United States of America walk into rooms around the world with the earned and self-appointed authority to talk about the importance of democracy, rule of law, and have been thought of as a role model, imperfect though we may be, but a role model of what it means to be committed to certain standards, including international rules and norms, but also standards of decorum. And what you see in my opponent, a former president of the United States, really is, it demeans the office.
A big component of this Georgia swing over the last 2 days was for the vice president to reach black voters. in this critical battleground state. She did that through these Souls to the Polls events. They are targeted to the faith community, where essentially black voters, they organize and mobilize in church, and then immediately after church take advantage of early voting. And this comes at a time when Democrats have been accused of taking black voters for granted, the base of the party, but the campaign is not operating in that space. They will argue that black voters are persuadable voters and that the campaign is doing all that they can to reach them in these pivotal closing weeks. Eva McKen, CNN, Stonecrest, Georgia.
And earlier, I spoke with political analyst Michael Genovese about the state of the race just over 2 weeks ahead of Election Day. With both sides mobilising their supporters, I asked him what Trump's strategy was, with some states supporting record turnout for early voting.
Trump has sort of baked into his own identity and his campaigning this notion that early voting is bad. And so there are a lot of Republicans who are reluctant to vote early because they still can hear the voice of Donald Trump resonating in their heads. Don't vote early, it's corrupt, it's fixed. Trump has changed his tune for obvious reasons because he needs those votes and wants to get people out. And some people just can't get out on one particular day, Election Day, November 5th. And so you want to have more flexibility. Trump is trying now to change gears and move to an encouraging of his voters to get out and vote early. Generally speaking, if past his prelude, early voting tends to favor Democrats. It's probably going to favor Democrats again this time around, but maybe not as much, by not as much. And so Donald Trump is trying to close that gap. And in a race that's going to be decided by 1, 2, 3/10 of a point, that could be the difference in winning and losing a state.
And just finally, we keep hearing from Donald Trump, he's talking about the enemy within. He's not talking about countries outside of the United States. He's talking about Americans. How is that resonating, do you think?
That is quite alarming. We don't talk like that in America. We see each other as perhaps rivals and adversaries, but not enemies. And the enemy within, Donald Trump has said he wants to bring the military in to help solve this problem, to take care of them. And he's mentioned people by name. Nancy Pelosi, for example. He's mentioned California's candidate for Senate, Adam Schiff. And so he's putting names to these folks who are he calls the enemies. What happens if Trump loses? Will his base be so outraged, so enraged, that they take up violence, that they start to break the windows and start smashing in the doors, as they did January 6th when they had a treasonous, violent insurrection against the Capitol where people died. And so we know that violence is a possibility. And so that's probably one of the most nightmarish scenarios post-election that we might very well face.
And be sure to join us next hour to see the rest of my interview with Michael Genovese on the 2024 US presidential election. And we'll be right back. Returning to our breaking news out of Kyiv, US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has made an unannounced visit to the Ukrainian capital. It comes as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky warns his country faces, quote, a new threat after reports North Korean soldiers may join the war to support Russian troops. This video was shared with CNN by the Ukrainian government, showing what appears to be soldiers lining up to receive supplies and uniforms. They are thought to be speaking Korean, but the audio is low quality and hard to understand. Another video from social media shows troops at a training ground in Russia's Far East. The US Defense Secretary could not confirm any of these reports, but President Zelensky says the evidence is clear and he expects a response from Ukraine's allies.
Now we have clear evidence that people are being supplied to Russia from North Korea. And these are not just workers for industries, but also military personnel. And we expect a normal, honest, strong reaction from our partners to this. In fact, this is the entry of another state into the war against Ukraine.
CNN's Claire Sebastian joins me now live from London with more. Good to see you, Claire. So what more are you learning about North Korean troops potentially being trained by Russia to deploy to Ukraine?
Yeah, Rosemary, for context, this is obviously from the point of view of Ukraine and Ukraine's allies, if they do eventually confirm it themselves, a major escalation, but not completely out of the blue. We have for months been seeing reports and hearing of this burgeoning defense partnership between Russia and North Korea. NATO and senior NATO officials has told CNN that North Korea has supplied some 2 million rounds of artillery shells to Russia, which is roughly equivalent to what Ukraine's allies can produce in a year. So this is a very significant sort of trade in ammunition and weapons. We know that, of course, Putin visited North Korea back in June to immense fanfare, and they signed what they called this comprehensive strategic partnership pact, which included this sort of Article 5 style mutual defense agreement where one side would come to the aid of another if they were subject to some kind of aggression. So it may be that we are seeing part of that in practice. Zelensky says that he thinks that North Korea is deploying some 10,000 troops to be used in Ukraine. South Korean intelligence has put that number at 12,000. It's not a huge number if you think that Russia has, at any given time, several 100,000 troops involved in the war in Ukraine. But it is significant if they have this now as a sort of a pipeline for people that they can tap as they need to replace losses on the battlefield and continue with this strategy of aggression. So we have these two videos, as you said, that show what purports to be North Korean soldiers involved potentially in training at a training ground near the near Russia's border with China. We have no evidence as yet showing them on the battlefield, but obviously for Ukraine, this comes at a critical point in the war, a point of maximum danger, essentially, where Russia is inching forward on several fronts. And of course, the US election has thrown the future of US assistance into doubt. So this is why you see Ukraine emphasizing this. I think they're hoping that this will change the calculus for the US, in particular when it comes to new weapons to be supplied, and in particular the issue of lifting restrictions on using Western long-range missiles on Russian soil. This will be closely watched, of course, during Secretary Austin's visit.
All right, thanks to Claire Sebastian joining us live with that report from London. Well, voters in Moldova casting their ballots Sunday in two crucial votes. Early results show that half the electorate voted yes in a referendum to confirm the country's European Union aspirations. Just under 98% of the votes have been counted. For President, the incumbent Maya Sandu received just under 42% of the vote, with just under 98% of the vote counted, as we mentioned. Her opponent, the former Prosecutor General of the country, got just over 26%. Since neither reached 50%, the vote goes to a runoff on November 3rd. There have been allegations of Russian-backed interference in the election. Well, coming up after the break, it's a move that could worsen an already dire situation. Sources say several medical non-profits have now been banned from Gaza. We'll have details for you on the other side of the break. Do stay with us. Lebanese state media reports a new round of Israeli airstrikes overnight caused casualties and damage. Right now, efforts are underway to rescue people trapped under the rubble. This video, geolocated by CNN, captures the moment a strike hit a building near Beirut's International Airport on Sunday, sending it crumbling to the ground on Sunday. And you can see the airport in the background of another video with plumes of smoke rising from a building in front. The Israeli military says it's targeting financial institutions linked to Hezbollah. The Lebanese Health Ministry says more than 1,800 people have been killed since Israel ramped up attacks on the Iran-backed militant group last month. But the IDF is vowing to continue defending the Israeli people, saying Hezbollah fired about 200 projectiles into Israel on Sunday. Well, Gaza's health ministry says at least 87 people, including children, were killed in an Israeli airstrike in northern Gaza on Saturday. CNN's Matthew Chance has more from Tel Aviv, but a warning: some of the images in this report are disturbing.
Israeli forces patrolling the labyrinth of narrow streets in the central Gaza Strip. These the latest images from the Israeli military. What they say is their continued activity amid the devastation to dismantle Hamas. To the south in Rafah, where the Hamas leader was recently killed. Drone footage of strikes and what Israel says are more Hamas fighters and infrastructure. While across Gaza, civilians are paying a heavy price. At this hospital in the north of the Gaza Strip, an influx of casualties from a new Israeli strike at Bet Lahia, where Palestinian health officials say dozens of people, including women and children, were killed. Among the shrouded bodies of her family, this woman calls her father to grieve their loss. "I swear, Dad, nobody is left," she sobs. Israel says the casualty figures are exaggerated and that they operate against Hamas in a precise and targeted manner. But eyewitnesses at the scene say the Israeli airstrikes felt like an earthquake. It was just Wednesday when an Israeli drone captured the final moments of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar's life. His killing fueling hopes of a hostage release, even a ceasefire in Gaza and beyond. In fact, the region seems to be plunging further into chaos, with Israel stepping up strikes and pressing deeper into neighbouring Lebanon, hitting what it says are strongholds of Iranian-backed Hezbollah, like here, the town of Nabatea in southern Lebanon. Back in Israel, Hezbollah rockets have been striking the country's north, one drone even hitting near the Israeli Prime Minister's private house in the coastal town of Caesarea. He called it an assassination attempt by agents of Iran, vowing to press ahead with military action. Iran denies involvement and Hezbollah has not claimed responsibility.
We're going to win this war. So will something deter you? No.
Amid fears of an even wider, escalating war, all sides seem bent on pressing ahead. Matthew Chance, CNN Tel Aviv.
Sources tell CNN Israel has banned at least 7 medical aid groups from entering Gaza. As for members of those organisations who are already inside the enclave, they will not be permitted re-entry once they leave. All of this comes as the US demands that Israel improve the humanitarian situation within Gaza. Dr. Mossab Nasser is the CEO of Fajr Scientific, a non-profit providing medical care for Palestinians affected by the war. It's also one of the organisations that has now been banned from entering Gaza. And Dr. Nasser joins me from Houston, Texas. Appreciate you talking with us.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for having me.
So you and your team have spent significant time in Gaza. So what is your reaction to news that at least 7 medical non-governmental organisations, including your own, have now been banned from entering the enclave? And what impact could this have on critical medical services that you and these other NGOs provide in Gaza?
Rosemary, the decision has been really shocking, especially it comes at the time where the operation, the Israeli operation in the north of Gaza has been really, really devastating to the over 400,000 people in the north. And that is the time more than ever before where we needed to be on the ground. According to the WHO, which is the organization we operate under its umbrella in Gaza, it says that 29%, over, let's say, close to 30% of the healthcare services provided by the organizations in Gaza will be cut because of the denial of those 7 organizations. So think of it like the fact that we are not on the ground. This could be translated into thousands of deaths over the next couple of months if this decision is not reversed immediately.
And that, of course, is shocking. I did want to ask you why you think these 7 NGOs, including your own, have been banned from entering Gaza, while others are still able to do so, and at a time, as you mentioned, when Israel's renewed military offensive is ramping up in the Palestinian enclave.
Honestly, this is $1 million question. We still don't know the reason. The Israeli authorities did not communicate with the WHO the reasons for our denial. We, initially when we received the news as an organization, Federal Scientific, we thought it could have been, it could be something related to something that maybe you've said on social media or something we have, talked about. But when we discovered that, several other organizations, actually a total of 8, have been banned or effectively denied entry rather than banned, it came shocking to all of us. We are apolitical organizations. We're humanitarian organizations, primarily medical. Federal Scientific specifically is specialized in complex surgeries, and it's highly needed in Gaza at this time because 80% of the injuries that are brought to the hospitals in Gaza are blast injuries, and primarily women and children. This is what we have seen and we continue consistently see at the hospitals.
And as you point out, your organization is apolitical. It's focused on providing this life-saving medical treatment in countries with limited access to health care, and your teams risk their lives to perform life-saving surgeries. But you also document the ongoing events in Gaza. Could that perhaps be why Israel has banned your organization, do you think?
Again, I'd like to stress on the fact that we have not been banned, we have been denied entry, and that's why we're hoping that this is temporary, is not permanent. And yes, we're a humanitarian organization. Part of our work is to document what we see on the ground. We don't take sides. We don't, the only thing that we report for our own, research and analysis and publications, we report what we see on the ground, we document it, and we publish it. That is the minimum that we can do as humanitarian organizations on the ground without taking any sides. So we maintain our apolitical position and we maintain our neutrality, similar to the organization that we operate under its umbrella, which is the WHO. And we have seen consistently over the past 12 months that those organizations have effectively stayed in their lane, which is the humanitarian medical lane, taking care of women, children, those who require immediate attention due to the blast injuries that we see literally on a daily basis when we are in Gaza. I can tell you our team on the ground in the north has reported that the Indonesian hospital, the Al-Auda hospital in the north, as well as Kamal Adwan hospital have been bombarded multiple times or bombed multiple times in the past few days. The upper floors of the Indonesian hospital as well as Al-Auda hospital have been destroyed. The Indonesian hospital does not have electricity. Patients are trying really hard to effectively, survive in this terrible environment, and many families have to pull their loved ones out, in the crossfire. And it's just, as humanitarian organizations, especially American organizations, to be denied entry, especially at this point, it really breaks our hearts. And I call upon the U.S. government specifically, since we are U.S. organizations, to help us reverse this decision as soon as possible.
Dr. Mohseb Nasser, thank you so much for talking with us and for the work that you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cuba's blackout continues with millions in the dark and Tropical Storm Oscar hampering efforts to restore power. We'll have details after the break. Eastern Cuba through Monday, eventually turning to the northwest. It's then expected to make another turn to the northeast on Tuesday, when it's forecast to move near the southeastern and central Bahamas. Well, Oscar's landfall comes as Cuba continues to cope with ongoing power outages. The countrywide blackouts are causing worry about food spoilage and a lack of water, as the storm is expected to delay urgent efforts to restore power. CNN's Patrick Oppman reports from Havana.
People here say they've been waiting all day and no power has come yet. They're killing time by playing dominoes in the street. People have said that their food has already begun to go to waste, that they're hungry, that there's been no power or water. The kids are sleeping in the street because it's just too hot to sleep inside, and people, they're making jokes, but they're also really uncomfortable and really unhappy, and are very upset that they still don't have any idea when power is going to come back on here or anywhere else. Already 4 times the Cuban government has been in the process of restoring power and had it all come crashing down, a complete loss of power on this island. So that is what worries people, is that the longer this goes on, we already know that school is going to be canceled here for several days. Life really can't return to normal until the power gets on. And at this point, nobody can say when that will happen. Patrick Ottman, CNN, Havana.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Rosemary Church. For our international viewers, World Sport is coming up next. And for those of you here in the United States and Canada, I'll be back with more CNN Newsroom in just a moment. Do stay with us. A warm welcome back to our viewers here in North America. I'm Rosemary Church. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is not backing down from his enemy within comments. In recent days, Trump has said he would use the military to quell any post-election unrest, and the backlash was almost immediate. During an interview with Fox News, he further defined the comments by making references to his political opponents, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff.
Adam Shifty Schiff, he's a crooked guy. He's a crooked politician, 100%. And he's going to be a senator now. Can you believe it?
But again, he's a political opponent of yours.
He's
but
not.
Is he an enemy?
No, he's a. Well, he is. Of course, he's an enemy. He's an enemy. He wanted to put my son in jail, and my son didn't even know what he was talking about. He's a bad people. We have a lot of bad people, but when you look at Shifty Schiff and some of the others. Yeah, they are, to me, the enemy from within. I think Nancy Pelosi is an enemy from within.
On CNN's State of the Union, Jake Tapper asked Republican Speaker of the U.S. House, Mike Johnson, about Trump's comments, and here's that exchange.
In multiple interviews this week, Donald Trump repeatedly referred to prominent Democrats and others on the left in the United States, American citizens, as, quote, the enemy from within, unquote. And he suggested, as president, he would want to use the National Guard or military against them. One of the first things you did when you joined Congress was to create the Honor and Civility Caucus. Does wanting to use the military against political opponents, would that pass muster with the Civility Caucus?
That's not... Jake, you know that's not what he's talking about there. What he's talking about is marauding gangs of dangerous, violent people who are destroying public property.
Nope, he talked about Adam
and
Schiff
threatening
and the Pelosi's.
other American citizens.
He's not talking. I mean, Governor Youngkin tried this with me too. That's not, he was very clear. Let me play, because he was asked about this later on, because Fox always likes to give Donald Trump an opportunity to clean it up, and he always says, "No, I said what I meant." Here's what he said when asked about it the next day.
It is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists, and they're sick. I use a guy like Adam Schiff because they made up the Russia hoax. It took 2 years to solve the problem. Absolutely nothing was done wrong, et cetera, et cetera. They're dangerous for our country. We have China, we have Russia, we have all these countries. If you have a smart president, they can all be handled. The more difficult are, the Pelosi's, these people, they're so sick. And they're so evil.
That's what he's talking about, using the U.S. military against, not marauding gangs of Venezuelan.
Wait a minute.
Adam
hold on.
Schiff, Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul. So let me just say, if a Democratic presidential candidate said that you and your wife were evil and that the military should be used against you, I would say that's disgusting.
Well, thank you. And some have said that about us because they don't like my politics. I did not hear President Trump in that clip say he's going to sic the military on Adam Schiff. That's not what he's saying. You got 2 different clips in 2 different contexts. What President Trump is talking about is that they have been attacking and maligning him from the day he came down that golden escalator. Everybody knows that's true. In 2015, 2016, that's when this began. He's been the most attacked, maligned political figure in U.S. history. They've tried to kill him twice in the last few months. months.
Who's
I mean,
they?
this is real, and he feels that acutely. And Jake, you
What
would
do you mean
too.
they?
If you were under attack like he is all the time, every day. They, I mean, Iran, who has assassination attempts out against him.
But
I
that's
mean,
not
crazy, dangerous
But
people
Adam
in the
Schiff
country who
and Nancy Pelosi
get on
are not
rooftops and
trying
take
to
shots.
assassinate Donald Trump. I mean, there's this conflation of anybody.
They're not, Jake. They're not. But no, but the political attacks have been relentless, and they have been baseless, and they made up the Russian collusion hoax, and they went after him and have been going after him ever since. They tried to impeach him twice. I mean, they've done real damage in the American psyche. What I'm talking about is the political attacks that are so over the top. Kamala Harris has used language saying he's so dangerous to the country. I mean, I've had colleagues in the House say he must be eliminated. He must be extinguished.
He's literally
I mean,
talking about
this
taking
stuff
the
is over the
military
top.
and
You know
using it against Democrats. I mean, he's literally talking.
No, he's not. No,
Yes, he is.
No, he's not, Jake. No, he's not. No, he's talking about using the National Guard and the military to keep the peace in our streets. In the summer of 2020, that my Democrat colleagues call the summer of love, it was crazy. It was mayhem, and Democratic progressive mayors and governors allowed it to go on, including Tim Walz, who allowed Minneapolis to burn, and it's still not rebuilt. Look, Trump is talking about restoring law and order, and I'm telling you, you can mock it. People in the media can mock it, but that resonates with the American people. They are sick of being afraid on the streets of their cities. Donald Trump can bring order back to the chaos. They know that. So they're willing to give a little on his, social media posts and some fun language he uses at
He called
rallies.
January 6th a day of love. He said that the January 6th criminals, the prisoners who violently attacked your place of work, he compared them to the victims of Japanese internment camps. And that guy is in favor of law and order?
The American TV news magazine 60 Minutes is rejecting Donald Trump's claim that the show's recent interview with Kamala Harris was deceitfully edited at the direction of her campaign. 60 Minutes ran a short version of Harris's answer to a question, and her full response answer ran in a segment on CBS's Face the Nation. Trump claims the network edited the segment to make Harris, quote, look like she's normal. 60 Minutes says that's false, explaining when we edit any interview, we strive to be clear, accurate, and on point. The portion of her answer on 60 Minutes was more succinct, allowing more time for other subjects in a wide-ranging 21-minute-long segment. Now, Trump recently pulled out of his own scheduled interview with 60 Minutes. The show says he's still welcome to come back. Well, at least 7 people are dead and several others critically injured after part of a ferry dock collapsed on Sapelo Island in Georgia on Saturday. Authorities are urgently investigating the cause of the tragedy. CNN's Rafael Romo has a report.
It's still very early in the investigation, but there are several things officials are focusing on, including why the gangway had a catastrophic failure, whether the increased number of people might have been a factor, and the age of the gangway itself. CNN has obtained video of the dock leading to the gangway that shows how the whole structure collapsed. You see the ferry in the background, the same one guests were trying to get to when the tragic collapse happened. We later see people by the shore trying to rescue those who had fallen into the water. What we know is that the gangway collapsed shortly before 4 in the afternoon on Saturday as crowds gathered on Sapelo Island for a celebration of the Gullah Geechee community of black slave descendants. According to Walter Raven, the commissioner of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, the gangway that led from the dock to the ferry collapsed when about 40 people were on it. Commissioner Raven said there was a significant increase in the number of people visiting on Saturday, although he doesn't yet know if that was a factor in the gangway's collapse.
Typically less than 100. Yesterday, I'm told that we had around 700 people on the island. That resulted in us offering additional ferry runs with both of our ferries, the Katie Underwood and the Anne Marie.
At least 20 people ended up in the water, and tragically 7 died, including Charles Houston, who served as a chaplain for the DNR, a City of Plains volunteer firefighter, and also worked with the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Officials also said there are 3 other people in critical condition. President Biden also reacted to the news, saying that he and the First Lady are heartbroken to learn about the ferry dock walkway collapse on Georgia's Sapelo Island. What should have been a joyous celebration of Gullah Geechee culture and history instead turned into tragedy and devastation, the president said. Sapelo Island is a barrier island off the coast of Georgia, accessible only by boat. It's home to about 70 full-time residents, and most of them are descendants from slaves who worked on plantations. Rafael Romo, CNN, Atlanta.
Fans from across the world are paying tribute to the late singer-songwriter and former One Direction member Liam Payne. In Indonesia, hundreds of mourners held a prayer vigil in Jakarta on Sunday. And in Spain, dozens of heartbroken fans gathered in central Madrid to honour the late singer's impact and legacy. Payne was just 31 years old when he died after falling from his hotel room balcony in Buenos Aires on Wednesday. Investigators in Argentina are working to reconstruct his final hours. However, the public prosecutor believes Payne was potentially experiencing some kind of episode due to substance abuse at the time. Our Camilla Bernal brings us the latest developments.
Even though Liam Payne's father has been in Buenos Aires since Friday, sources telling CNN that the body has not been released to the family. We are being told that they will release that body to the family as soon as they complete the last clinical test needed. We were being told by sources that the father was able to see the body at the morgue, but what he wasn't able to do was go into the room where his son was staying. They allowed him to go into a similar room on another floor because of this ongoing investigation. While there, the father also going outside and speaking to the fans, thanking them for their support. The fans have been gathering not just in Buenos Aires, but also all over the world, including in London, in Japan, in Australia, and here in the U.S. A lot of these fans bringing letters and photos and flowers and candles, a lot of them singing together, singing One Direction songs, and expressing how meaningful the band has been for them as they've grown up with them. We've also seen an outpouring of support on social media, including from Liam Payne's sister, who expressed the fact that he was her best friend, saying she is in disbelief, and of course also expressing her love for her brother. We also learned that one of the other former members of One Direction, Zayn Malik, announcing that he's postponing his U.S. portion of the tour, and of course thanking his fans for understanding. Camila Bernal, CNN, Los Angeles.
And we want to thank you for joining us this hour. I'm Rosemary Church. I'll be back with more CNN Newsroom in just a moment. U.S. election campaign and the escalating war in Ukraine. And Israel launches a wave of airstrikes across Lebanon targeting Hezbollah-affiliated financial institutions.
Live from Atlanta, this is CNN Newsroom with Rosemary Church.
15 days to go in the U.S. presidential race, and the candidates remain separated by only the thinnest of margins. Analysts say the entire election will likely come down to just a few key battleground states. And that's where Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will be focusing their efforts going forward, trading barbs and sometimes personal attacks as they work to establish an advantage. Harris reached out to black voters with a visit to a church in Georgia. She urged supporters to cast their ballots as soon as possible and asked the crowd to think about the future they want as they go to the polls.
Right now, each of us has an opportunity to make a difference. In this moment, our country is at a crossroads, and where we go from here is up to us, as Americans and as people of faith. And now we ask a question. We face this question: what kind of country do we want to live in? A country of chaos, fear, and hate, or a country of freedom, compassion, and justice?
Harris sat down Sunday for a conversation with MSNBC where she explained why she feels Donald Trump is simply not fit to lead the country. Eva McCann has more.
In an interview with Al Sharpton, the vice president arguing when the former president demeans her, he is denigrating the office of the presidency and that he lacks a basic standard to return to the White House. And we have seen the vice president employ this argument with increasing frequency over the last several days. It seems targeted to a very specific type of voter, a voter that perhaps doesn't agree with her on every policy matter, but is in alignment with this broader argument that the former president is unfit for the White House. Take a listen.
You know, we as representing the United States of America walk into rooms around the world with the earned and self-appointed authority to talk about the importance of democracy, rule of law, and have been thought of as a role model, imperfect though we may be, but a role model of what it means to be committed to certain standards, including international rules and norms, but also standards of decorum. And what you see in my opponent, a former president of the United States, really is, it demeans the office.
A big component of this Georgia swing over the last 2 days was for the vice president to reach black voters in this critical battleground state. She did that through these Souls to the Polls events. They are targeted to the faith community, where essentially black voters, they organize and mobilize in church and then immediately after church take advantage of early voting. And this comes at a time when Democrats have been accused of taking black voters for granted, the base of the party, but the campaign is not operating in that space. They will argue that black voters are persuadable voters and that the campaign is doing all that they can to reach them in these pivotal closing weeks. Eva McCann, CNN, Stonecrest, Georgia.
Donald Trump spent his Sunday in the critical state of Pennsylvania, and after making headlines this weekend with a meandering story about Arnold Palmer that included a vulgar reference to the golf legend's genitals, the former president kept it more low-key this time, focusing mostly on attacking his opponent. Danny Freeman has more.
On Sunday evening, frankly, we saw a more disciplined former President Donald Trump on the campaign trail here in Pennsylvania. There were far fewer tangents. The event was even shorter than normal, and it certainly seemed like the former ESPN host who moderated the event, plus the campaign-selected voters who asked the candidate questions, really were able to keep former President Donald Trump more on track throughout the evening. He emphasized his proposals on the economy, including no taxes on tips and overtime, talked about supporting fracking, and, of course, he mostly railed against the Biden administration when it comes to immigration. Now, there were, of course, several exaggerations when it came to the subjects of the economy, immigration, and crime, and there were some of his normal asides. He spoke about bragging about his poll numbers. He also aired some of his grievances against ABC News for the last presidential debate, but there was nothing particularly vulgar or odd like we saw at Saturday evening's rally in Western Pennsylvania, for example, that odd Arnold Palmer story. Trump did, however, continue to boost his new campaign surrogate, Elon Musk, the billionaire who has been stumping for him in Pennsylvania over the course of the weekend, in fact, even including offering a raffle of $1 million to supporters who signed a petition to get into some of the events, which some legal experts tell CNN it might be illegal. But take a listen to what the former president said this evening about both Harris and Elon Musk.
This woman is so incompetent, she's so bad, you cannot, and I would normally not like to speak like that. If they get chosen, our country's finished. You know, Elon Musk is a very smart guy. You got to see his endorsement. He said, if this election isn't won by Donald Trump, our country is essentially finished.
And earlier on Sunday, former President Trump stopped by a McDonald's in all-important Bucks County in the suburbs of Philadelphia. He was seen doing a photo op, making fries in the fryer, and also serving some patrons from the drive-thru. Danny Freeman, CNN, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Michael Genovese is a political analyst and president of the Global Policy Institute at Loyola Marymount University. He's also the author of The Modern Presidency, 6 Debates That Define the Institution. And he joins me now from Los Angeles. Always good to have you with us.
Thank you, Rosemary.
So just 15 days to Election Day in America, and Donald Trump was campaigning in the battleground state of Pennsylvania on Saturday. His closing message veering into profanity, talking about Arnold Palmer's genitals. Is this the closing message that Republicans want to hear from their presidential nominee with just 2 weeks to go? What's going on here?
For the last couple of weeks, Donald Trump has become more and more unhinged, more and more showing his age. And as you referred to his present speech today, he's also showing his insecurities. He's always been obsessed with size. We remember his post-inaugural claim that his inauguration's crowd was bigger than anyone else's, biggest ever, bigger than Obama's. And then we saw the pictures and saw that certainly Trump's was smaller. But his comments about Arnold Palmer's private areas are both disturbing, but also revealing. It reveals a lot about Donald Trump. It also, I think, gives us a glimpse as to why he is always going on the attack, on the view that the best defense is a good offense. So before someone can attack him or make fun of him or laugh at him, he goes on the attack and takes the aggressive stance. The problem is our adversaries also know how insecure Trump is about size. And they know that they can play him. They know that they can get under his skin. They can rattle him. And so this is not just a funny or an off-color personal quirk. This is something that has broader implications.
And Kamala Harris is focusing on the dangers posed by Trump. Her main message now is that he's not fit for office. But is that resonating with men? She's not doing as well with white male voters as she is with female voters, while black and Hispanic men are showing some interest in voting for Trump. So how can she overcome that gender gap and convince men that she will champion their cause better than Trump will?
It's a challenge that she probably can't meet because we've seen for the last 12, 15, 18 years, white males especially are really in a kind of questioning mode. They feel challenged. They feel threatened by the rise of women in the workplace, in politics, and minorities also are fielding challenges to white male status. And so white males who have always been in charge of things now find that their status is being challenged. And that has really been something the Republicans, and Trump especially, really been able to take advantage of. Trump's done a great job. You remember his conventions where they had a bunch of wrestlers trying to talk about, manhood and manliness. And so Trump is basically putting almost all of his shoes in one basket. Harris can't dent into that very much because there's that white male status anxiety that is so powerful, especially among the less educated in America.
And with most polls showing the two presidential candidates in a dead heat, what needs to happen in the next 15 days to sway voters either way in all the critical battleground states? And where do you see this going?
Well, the path to the White House runs through the Midwest of America. 3 states especially, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. For Harris to win, she pretty much has to run the table winning all 3 of those. She has to sweep them. Trump has a few other options. He's got a broader range of things that he can do and paths to the White House. But those 3 states are going to be the key. In 2016, Trump won all 3 and won the White House. In 2020, he lost all 3 and lost the White House. Right now, the polling in those 3 states are unbelievably close. Shocking. All 3 of those states, the polls averaging out to less than 1% difference between the 3 candidates. And so this race in those 3 key states are closer than teeth. And that means that the key to winning will be turnout. Whoever can get the best turnout is going to win this race.
Michael Genovese, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rosemary.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin arrived in Kyiv just a short time ago for an unannounced visit to the Ukrainian capital. This follows a meeting in Brussels last week with his counterparts in NATO. High on the agenda, questions from allies about the upcoming election and how it might impact Ukraine aid. Specifically, concerns that a potential Trump victory could jeopardize future U.S. aid to Ukraine. Sources familiar with the meeting tell us Austin said that while he can't predict the future, there's still bipartisan support for Ukraine in Congress. NATO officials say they're preparing for the U.S. to take on a lesser role. And CNN's Natasha Bertrand is travelling with Secretary Austin and joined us now by phone. Good to talk with you, Natasha. So what is the significance of this visit?
Well, this is the last time that Secretary of Defense Austin is going to be visiting Kyiv before the U.S. election, of course, which is just in 15 days now. And so this is an opportunity for him to meet with President Zelensky, to meet with Defense Minister Umerov, and get a sense for how Ukraine is grappling with its very serious manpower shortages, as well as get a sense for what they need at this moment to better meet their war aims, because Ukraine, right now is kind of on the back foot on the battlefield. Russia continues to make small but steady gains on the battlefield, and they are recruiting up to 30,000 troops per month, whereas Ukraine is really struggling to ramp up its enlistment of additional troops. And so these are all things that the Secretary is going to be speaking about while he is here today. But it's also a chance for him to reaffirm the United States' support for Ukraine, particularly as, there's a lot of anxiety here about what the presidential election is going to bring, particularly in the next year. President Zelensky has said that he would like this war to end by the end of 2025, but the future of U.S. aid, which has been so critical to allowing Ukraine to fend off the Russians over the last 2+ years, that really hangs in the balance. President Trump has said repeatedly that he believes President Zelensky is a, quote, salesman, that he should have never let the war start, which, of course, we know, the Russians are the ones that invaded. And so all of this really paints a picture of doubt and anxiety heading into the next year about whether the U.S., which has been the biggest backer of Ukraine, is going to continue to play that outsized role. It really is a very uncertain moment here at this point.
Natasha Bertrand joining us on the line there from Kyiv. And CNN's Claire Sebastian joins me now live from London. So, Claire, what does this visit mean for Ukraine, and what are you learning about conditions on the ground there, both along the front line and Ukraine's energy infrastructure as winter approaches?
Yeah, Rosemary, we see a lot of foreign officials arrive on that train platform in Kyiv, but I think, as Natasha said, this visit carries a lot of importance, not only because of the timing for the U.S. Electoral calendar, but also for Ukraine. This is a very precarious moment in the war. Russia is inching forward, not just on the eastern front, but it's pushing up in the northeast, in the sort of Kharkiv region. It recently claimed to have captured a settlement down in Zaporizhia. Aerial attacks are up exponentially over the past few months. Case in point, according to our analysis of Ukrainian Air Force data, Russia fired more than 3 times more drones in September than it did in May, and all of this, of course, heading into winter, where the International Energy Agency says that that Ukraine is operating with less than a third of its pre-war electricity generating capacity, partly thanks to attacks this year. So this is the situation in which it finds itself. There's also evidence emerging that Russia may be getting ready to bring North Korean soldiers into the fight. We have videos, one of which was sent to CNN by the Ukrainian government, showing what purports to be North Korean soldiers. You see it there at a training ground near Russia's border with China. So Ukraine may now have to fight a second, or elements of a second national army on its soil. Though, of course, we don't have evidence yet that they are actually on the battlefield. So it is a very precarious moment. The US remains the biggest backer by far, and it certainly, when it comes to crossing the next weapons Rubicon that Ukraine is looking at, that issue of lifting restrictions and using Western long-range missiles inside Russia. President Zelensky hinted last week that the three countries that provide them, the US, the UK and France, they want unanimity, and the US at this point may be the holdout. Secretary Austin saying on Friday that he believes Ukraine is doing perfectly well with its own drones when it comes to hitting these targets deep inside Russia. So all of this will be extremely closely watched during this visit, now just over 2 weeks out from the US election.
All right, thanks to Claire Sebastian joining us from London with that live report. And still to come, we are following the latest developments in the Middle East as first responders search for survivors in Lebanon after new Israeli strikes overnight. Plus, extreme overnight rainfall and severe flooding bring death and destruction on 2 continents. We'll have details when we return. Lebanese state media reports a new round of Israeli airstrikes overnight have caused casualties and damage. Right now, efforts are underway to rescue people trapped under the rubble. This video, geolocated by CNN, captures the moment a strike hit a building near Beirut's International Airport Sunday, sending it crumbling to the ground. And you can see the airport in the background of another video with plumes of smoke rising from a building in front. The Israeli military says it's targeting financial institutions linked to Hezbollah. The Lebanese health ministry says more than 1,800 people have been killed since Israel ramped up attacks on the Iran-backed militant group last month. But the IDF is vowing to continue defending the Israeli people, saying Hezbollah fired about 200 projectiles into Israel on Sunday. And CNN's Salma Abdelaziz joins me now live from London. Good morning to you, Salma. So what is the latest on this new wave of Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon?
Yes, so more airstrikes overnight in Lebanon. I have to begin by saying, Rosemary, that these have just occurred, so rescue workers are still trying to assess the damage and find survivors. But what we do know is that Baalbek, this area in eastern Lebanon, was struck. Multiple buildings hit. Rescue workers are trying to find survivors under the rubble. Tyre as well in southern Lebanon, that was an area that was struck as well. Israel says that it issued what it calls evacuation orders for these areas. And it's part of this wider push that we saw over the weekend. Rosemary, Israel says that it is targeting Hezbollah's financial institutions, particularly those that are based in southern Beirut and in southern Lebanon. In its crosshairs is the Al-Qadr Al-Hassan Association. Now, Israel says that this financial institution is responsible for purchasing weapons for Hezbollah, for paying its fighters, for evading sanctions, but it also serves another system. This is a banking institution for some 300,000 potential customers in Lebanon. It provides loans to the poor in the Shia community. It pays salaries. So the goal, Israel says, is not just to destroy the very structure, the concrete structure of these financial institutions, but also to evade the trust between Hezbollah and the Shia community in Lebanon. Now, Israel is not backing down. In fact, it is doubling down. The country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, was on the border with Lebanon just the other day speaking to Israeli troops, saying in his words that the goal is to, quote, clear that area of southern Lebanon to allow Israelis to return to northern Israel, these areas that have become ghost towns. But the fire continues to come into northern Israel as well. There was some 160 rockets fired over the weekend into northern Israel, but Israel continues to say its goals are being met, including, again, going back to Yoav Gallant saying that Hezbollah was not just being defeated but destroyed. Israel also claimed that it killed some 65 Hezbollah fighters in a single day over the weekend, but the cost, the consequence of this Rosemary, is absolutely dire. The death toll in Lebanon now exceeds more than 1,800 people and more than 9,000 wounded.
All right, thanks to Salma Abdelaziz bringing us that report from London. Well, Cuba's blackout continues with millions in the dark and Tropical Storm Oscar hampering efforts to restore power. We'll have details after the break. At least one person is dead in northeast Italy after heavy rain caused extensive overnight flooding across the region. Meanwhile, in Roswell, New Mexico, at least 2 people are dead and nearly 300 have been rescued after extreme overnight rainfall sparked severe flooding late Saturday. CNN meteorologist Derek Van Dam has the latest.
We're monitoring flooding on 2 different continents. We're going to start in North America, where the wettest day ever in Roswell, New Mexico's history unfolded on Saturday and into early Sunday morning. Look at the video of the flooding that occurred. That is a submerged truck, and there were several instances where there were swiftwater rescues and water entering buildings and homes. A significant situation unfolding as a flash flood emergency was in place for this area. Look at how much rain fell. This is, again, incredible. 5.78 inches, roughly 150 millimeters from this storm that moved through. Their average October rainfall, only a little over 1.25 inches. So again, this is the wettest day that Roswell, New Mexico has ever recorded. And the wet weather continues. Even though the storm system that is responsible for the flooding that occurred Saturday into early Sunday morning hours still could produce a bit more rainfall over eastern New Mexico, it will quickly move on by Monday afternoon and bring rainfall to the central parts of the country. Now we are focusing our attention on southern Italy, where they are also contending with flooding. The Salto River in Sicily actually overflowed its banks, and this is the result. Look at the flooding across this agricultural area. Significant impacts to the region. It's all thanks to a low pressure system that's churning across the central Mediterranean. There is the potential here for more rain. Some of the totals here have exceeded 125 millimeters, especially across the central portions of the country. But Sicily, impressive rainfall totals as well, with more rain to come and the potential for more flooding as well. In fact, chances of flooding through about Tuesday, with orange and red alerts in place for the area as we get this onshore flow from the Mediterranean, allowing for precipitation to build up across the region. So covering flooding from North America to Europe on this latest weather report. Back to you.
Thanks for that. And CNN's Barbie Nadeau joins me now from Rome. So, Barbie, what is the latest on the flooding in Italy and, of course, its impact on the region?
Yeah, the concentration this morning is really on central Italy in Emilia-Romagna, and especially the city of Bologna. Now, this is a city that's filled with lots of canals, and those canals have overflowed, which has caused some dramatic flooding in the region. We've seen some rescues, a 3-year-old little girl with her family rescued by helicopter late on Sunday night, and we've had one death reported, a 20-year-old young man who was trapped in his car. There are lots of rescues going on as we speak this morning, lots of checks being done, especially in the rural areas, and they're under flood watch until at least through Tuesday. It's important to remember, of course, that this is an area that suffered incredible flooding just a year ago. 17 people died, and the infrastructure still hasn't come back online in many of those, especially rural areas, and so they're really concerned about the continuing rain here, Rosemary.
And Barbie, how prepared is Italy for flooding like this on this scale?
Yeah, flooding is not an unnatural thing to happen, especially in the north of the country. They're having more of a problem in places like Sicily. Their flooding there doesn't happen as frequently as it does in these northern regions. Now, some of those images we saw out of Catania, where those roads had turned to rivers, that really did cause some incredibly dramatic rescues. People on their mopeds, being swept away, being rescued in the streets there. They're less prepared probably in Sicily than in northern Italy, but when the rain is just so incessant and the ground is so saturated, even the best laid plans are going to be difficult for those rescuers and first responders who now are working across the country just trying to get people to safety and try to keep them safe. Rosemary.
Indeed. All right. Our thanks to Barbie Nadeau bringing us that live report. Appreciate it. A wooden boat carrying 231 migrants, including 14 women and 3 children, was intercepted off Spain's Canary Islands on Sunday. It's the largest number of people to be rescued from the same boat off the island this year. More than 30,000 migrants have taken the boat journey from West Africa to the Spanish islands since January, marking a rise of nearly 40% from the same period last year. Oscar remains a tropical storm hours after making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane on the northern coast of eastern Cuba. The slow-moving storm has brought heavy rainfall and life-threatening flash flooding. The National Hurricane Center also warns it could cause mudslides. It's expected to continue moving across eastern Cuba through Monday, eventually turning to the northwest. It's then expected to make another turn to the northeast on Tuesday, when it's forecast to move near the southeastern and central Bahamas. And Oscar's landfall comes as Cuba continues to cope with ongoing power outages. The countrywide blackouts are causing worry about food spoilage and a lack of water, as the storm is expected to delay urgent efforts to restore power. CNN's Patrick Oppman reports from Havana.
Cuba on Sunday.